Hello and welcome to our show Midwest Weekly, starring myself, Herwick, and my co-host COT. We are here to give you a breakdown of Week Three's action across the Midwest Sweat League Winter Split. I also would like to introduce some special guests today. From Coinflip, the top laner, Brandino, and their support, Geoprow. Would either of you like to say anything about yourselves? Maybe the league would like to know.
Oh yeah, sure. Hi, Brandino, top laner Coinflip. Our namesake is our playstyle. So you fight against us, be prepared to land heads or tails.
Yeah, and I'm Coinflip support. I like to kill the AD carry, and that's all I do. And then I give the supports PTSD when they try to ward.
Nice, nice. That is a very good representation of what support
That
does.
is scary accurate.
Yep, yep. All right. Well, with that being said, CLT, would you like to kick us off here with the first series, which is Insane Banana Posse versus Freebrex?
Yeah. This was a pretty big matchup for Group A, as Insane Banana didn't want to go down 0-3 on the season. And also, this win gives them now a tiebreaker over Freebrax for potentially that last playoff spot. But going into the matchup, they had a couple of subs here. So their top laner, unfortunately, was on vacation. And War Initiate, who played top lane for them last split, moved up to top. So Zelda guy, who's been kind of a consistent figure around here, played with Team last year and subbed a little bit this year. I think he subbed with Team Ghost on week one. He moved into mid lane, but then Crackler had a family emergency, which I actually checked with him. Everything's all good there. He just yeah, had to unfortunately miss this, so they got Dog Davis one to sub in the bot lane, and team did really well. So War Initiate brought out a couple of his patented picks here in game one. We see the Olaf into what I would actually think is a pretty good Olaf spot. You have him into Maokai Amumu, which Olaf ult just ignores all of that, and he had a really solid game overall. But Flame Dog, I mean, this guy is just an insane jungler. He has his own unique pool, as we'll kind of get into in game two, but popped off quite a bit on the Poppy, pun intended, and Zelda was still there in the mid and late game with the Swain. But Freebrack still put up a really solid fight overall. I mean, they traded gold leads post 30 minutes back and forth on team fights, but Freebrax got a really solid team fight, and during the fourth Drake, which Insane Banana turned it around, and once Insane Banana got that Mountain Soul, they didn't look back. There was nothing that could stop their team comp because they're so innately tanky as it is to begin with.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, didn't Freebrex also have a sub? Wasn't Avo a sub for them or no?
Uh, could
Yeah, because
be.
Honky's their original top laner, right?
I believe so. I'm still kind of getting used to the lineup of some of these new teams. Uh, so Freebrax might have had a sub there, but I still see I see Dig, I see Big B, I see Kellen. So the core group is still there
Yeah,
for the
I'm
most
pretty
part.
sure Avo's on another team because I remember somebody telling me how to pronounce his name in a cast, and it definitely was not Freebrex's. So I'm gonna go with I'm pretty sure this guy was subbing for them.
Yeah,
With
but
that being said, yeah, this game was a banger. This was like a 40. What did it come out to be? A 43-minute game. I know
yeah.
I did a rerun cast of this series, and I thought like for a bit there that Freebrax was gonna kind of pull the win out, but um, no matter how fed the Jinx got or how fed the Hoi got, like every time it looked good, like Freebrax might have an opportunity to win the game. Somebody just got caught out randomly, and then again the fights just turned and the gold league swapped back and forth. It was just kind of I don't know. It literally was the example of what our guest here today talked about being a coin flip. So, um, can you guys discuss that a little bit? What it's like to be in those kind of series where, or maybe not the series, but specifically a game where like every time something happens, it just kind of goes back and forth, on who's getting kind of the momentum and how those games feel to play.
No, yeah, I'll give this one to George. I think that this is more his forte. For Geoprow, sorry.
Yeah, so I think in games where every time you try to make a play, something goes wrong somewhere else, or you can't like make a clean play with an advantage, it turns into a spot where you just have to play to the map as much as you can. Like you have to try and be extra early to the next objective. You have to get your wards down. I just feel like vision is such a huge part of late games where you're trying to get this one little edge so you can flip the whole thing. Um, that's kind of my perspective on it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
I
makes a lot
I
of
agree
sense.
with most of that. The biggest thing about these games that you talk about being coin flippy is that if it's even, you know, a single kill in one direction can cause a Baron. A single tower in one direction can cause a new wing condition for a backdoor. So just having the eyes to constantly look for plays faster than the other team is important. Some teams slow down. They get a little scared. They get a little antsy about, well, I don't want to throw the game or whatever. Um, when they do that, that causes them to miss opportunities. If you're gonna flip the coin, you got to keep flipping.
Yeah, I like that breakdown because you're definitely right. Like teams, like if they feel like they're kind of behind a bit, they kind of just turn off and say, "Well, we can turtle," which I think turtling is good in a lot of circumstances. Don't get me wrong, especially with the late game comp. But in those games where really like, and I think in this comp, looking at both of them, the scaling definitely was on free bracks, but they were down in Drakes heavily the whole game, so they're kind of forced to fight because if you give Mountain Soul over to Insane Banana Posse here with their comp, like it kind of evens out that scaling a bit, right? So you definitely don't want to be afraid. Just take the coin flip, take the fight, see what happens. But it really didn't seem like either of these teams were afraid to fight for plays. It just seemed like every time a play was made by one team, the other team also made one. A good example is I just was watching this back. It's around, let's see, 20. Where was it? I was just watching it. So the Olaf died in the bot lane was the whole thing. The Olaf died in the bot lane in what was essentially a 1v1 between the Maokai and himself, but the Jinx Rocket ended up taking that kill, finishing it off. And then as that happened, I think it was around like 26 minutes or so in the game.
Yeah,
At,
27.
yeah, so as that happened, then a fight broke out mid in favor of Insane Banana Posse where they cleaned up multiple members. But the fight was so extended that the Maokai was able to walk all the way from bot lane after using everything to kill Olaf and picks up a kill on the Ashe. So you end up in a situation where it's just not a clean enough like sweep to really end the game, but it's enough to maybe go for a Baron like you said, or maybe get a couple turrets and reset. But it's just not enough to really break the game open like you'd want to see from their perspective. Like we got 4 kills or whatever it was, but it just wasn't enough because it was a 4 for 2, and the 80 carry was dead, and the top laner was dead. So a lot of your damage on turrets is kind of gone. So um, just so funny stuff like that. I want to also ask another question about this top lane matchup. Is this supposed to be an Olaf favored matchup, or is it kind of okay for Maokai? Because in my head, it should have been Olaf favored, but I know Maokai got like a couple solo kills in the lane, so at least
Yeah,
one.
so for most, Olaf functions similarly to Darius, so he's kind of like a lane king, cuts down tanks like Maokai pretty well. A lot of the matchups though can be boiled down to a lot of lane wave manipulation stuff. So if the Maokai got to put the lane into a very precarious spot for Olaf, I didn't watch this exact series, so I don't know how often that might have happened. It becomes really difficult for Olaf to make the aggressive play. But if Maokai is all the way pushed up to Olaf's tower, it's very easy for Olaf to run him down and kill him. So very much Olaf favored. I will say that the Maokai sided team picked triple AP with Hui and Mumu and Maokai on the top side. It's a very easy, get Merc treads and kind of just never die at all for Olaf. So this is really, really, Olaf's dream for his top side.
Yeah, I'm honestly surprised. Like I was talking about a build a while back with like Olaf picks, where you kind of go like a instead of like a tankier build, just kind of go like a drain healing build with like the Ravenous Hydra into like a Spear Visage Maul type thing. And I think like a game like this, he had an opportunity to do something like that and basically just never die. Like whoever he's hitting, he's just constantly healing. But he kind of went for more of that Tinker Bruiser build. Not that that ruined his chances to play the game or anything. It was just something I was kind of thinking to myself, like, man, he really would never die if he did this. So I don't know if that's something you've done in the past on a pick or anything, but it certainly used to be more of a thing back in the day. I don't know how it is now. So
Drain tank build is really good. It's especially very good when you're ahead. If you even get a little bit ahead, now all the damage that would have stuck onto you is gone. However, if you're even slash behind in terms of the battles, like if you were to trade 100 HP back and forth, it's kind of worse because in every situation where they might all in you, you are now going to die a little bit faster because you don't have any of the tankiness from the other items. So it's risky when you're even because in that scenario they can try to all in you and kill you, and if you're even slightly ahead you can heal basically to full and super snowball on them because whatever damage they take will stick. So I don't know what it looked like in the lane matchup for him there. I will say in general Olaf can build some of this stuff against Maokai and kind of be safe the whole time. Maokai is not really going to punish him for it. So I think that that's an option. The build he went with though, not bad. It works in all scenarios. Not bad.
yeah, no, it definitely worked out. I don't think it was a bad build or anything. And plus the Chemtech or Chempunk, whatever it's called, Chempunk Chainsword, that's obviously going to be really good into the tree here. Stop his healing. So I like that for sure. But yeah, overall, I mean, it was a fun game to watch and to cast because I did cast this series, and it ended uh, in a very interesting fashion around the it was around the Elder, but it wasn't really fought over the Elder. It was just fought in the mid lane more or less. These teams were like posturing, and then the fight broke out before Elder even spawned, um, which is a good time to take a fight. But yeah, Emilio overstepped, and then pretty much the team fight was over because Jinx can't heal and get the peel she needs from her Emilio. So it's kind of sad because I do still think that Freebrax had every chance to win this game just because they had the comp to do it. They scaled so hard and so well into that late game. But that kind of happens when you're at a 43-minute game, right? Mistakes are going to come out. So, with that
Yeah,
being
there's a lot more forward power on. I'm assuming Insane Banana Posse is the Ash side, right? With that Olaf, Poppy, Swain. Um,
yes, yes,
yeah, they have just much more like instant on the fly playmaking power. The other team is like way more front to back 5v5y. So like if you can get that 5v5 in general, it's gonna work. But I prefer Insane Banana Posse's comp by a mile here. They have way more ability to make plays at any point in the match. So that's where I'd go with this.
yeah. Well, we'll go ahead and lead into game two, CLT, if you want to discuss that a little bit.
Yeah. Game two, again, another huge banger here. The big glaring thing kind of noticed in the draft was a Zyra jungle here. I think this might be the first AP jungler we've seen this split. Um,
I don't think it's
I
the
think
first, but it's definitely one of like the first oddball carry junglers.
yeah, for sure. Um, which actually I thought Zyra was picked in a fairly decent spot since you're trying to fight back and create space once Nocturne engages. But we see War on another one of his kind of patented picks on the Urgot top, and then we see Big B getting the Victor, which is kind of rare. Victor got banned a lot this week, but I do think out of all the things to let through, like if you have a Hui player, which Zelda's like super talented on Hui, Victor's is manageable. Hui doesn't mind that matchup in the mid lane at all. But overall, looking at these team comps, I think it's kind of a little it's interesting on the side of free Brax that they've got Nocturne, but really not. I don't want to say like not too much follow up engage, but there's not nobody else throwing their bodies in to like absorb cooldowns and stuff. So Nocturne can be focus fired down quite easily. I mean, you're still turning the lights off for Victor, Ult, and Rumble, but it's still not the greatest amount of range.
Yeah,
And when you're diving into Hui, Zyra, or Urgot, it's like you're gonna get blown up real fast. Urgot ulted, and then he just brings the fear into your team that's trying to move forward. Which I think we've seen that a few times in this game. But this game was a pretty big banger as well,
yeah, it was
from
really
what I've
close.
seen.
It was definitely close. Um, I'll kind of touch on the comps a little bit, and then I wanted to ask Geoprow a little bit about uh, his opinion on some of these support picks we've been seeing. So before I do that, I'll dive into the comp here. As far as both comps, I actually favor Freebrex's comp more, and the reason why is the way they've set it up. Nocturne plus Rumble is really, really strong. You can't see the equalizer. If you're in a choke, it's really bad. And there's actually a fight that we'll kind of touch on here in a bit that I thought was insane. It also turns off the lights for Leona Solar Flare, which is also big. Part of Leona's Solar Flare difficulty with landing it is because you want to be able to land the actual stun most of the time, right? Like the slow is good. If you can get the slow on multiple members, that's great. But like if you get that stun, it can be real game changing, especially in multiple members. And that's something that Nocturne kind of sets up there. And then you kind of talk about Nocturne going in. He doesn't really have a lot to go in with him. He doesn't, but he does have a Kaisa. And I think because of that, the whole design of the comp is perfect. So you have your early mid game, you have your team fight, and you have your late game insurance with Victor. I mean, we know Kaisa scales pretty well, but I think it would have been better if Kaisa went 80 build more than on hit build, by the way. Like just full send, like a crit type build. I know it's not super strong for Kaisa right now, but you had double AP already. I don't think you needed more of that kind of AP on hitty stuff going on. That's just my personal opinion. Maybe you guys could break that down a little bit here too, but that's how I broke down the comps. On the other side, it was just like what St. Banana Posse had kind of going. Like it worked. You had the pick potential. You had decent team fighting. Um, but at the same point, like their front line was the Urgot, and you don't need a true front line every game. But like, he really wasn't that tanky. When they like focused him, he pretty much got shredded. So it was a pretty risky comp, but it ended up working out. Like it's more than just the comp, right? You have to execute. So it's fun to watch. But yeah, Geoprow, I want to kind of talk about these supports. What do you think about Leona, Seraphine? What's being picked right now as far as like pretty commonly picked at the moment?
I'm a huge fan of Leona. Leona's probably my best champ right now, but personally, again, I'm a very aggressive player. I hate Aftershock on Leona. Um, I think it overlaps too much with the W, and getting bonus resist doesn't really help when you're stacking them that much. W on Leona and Aftershock both give so many flat resists that getting them both at the same time is kind of bad overlap. So I always go press the attack, but it's a lot more volatile to do that. But I think Leona's a great pick. I think Seraphine's a pretty good option into it. I really like going for a ranged enchanter if you're trying to fight a Leona. Um, and Leona's only counterplay into that kind of a pick is to just try and be on top of them the entire lane. Um, so I really like both these picks. I think as a bot lane duo, they're both really strong in different ways. Kai'Sa's passive is really good synergy with Leona, and then Ashe and Seraphine both have insanely good fight ults for starting fights later on. So mid game, I heavily favor the Ashe Seraphine, but early game, Kai'Sa Leona should be able to bully the lane a lot.
Yeah, and I don't if I remember correctly, a lot of the bot lane like kind of went the way you're saying, but there was also jungle impact that affected it a bit. Um, I think if Squirrel and Deke just got to play it out straight up, I think they would have been fine. But yeah, they ended up being ganked a couple times, as well as if I'm not mistaken, Ash is pretty good in the Kaisa, so that kind of affects it a
Yeah,
bit too.
Ashe is also a really good pick into melee supports in general because it's incredibly punishing if you go in when you're not allowed to. If you don't have your permission slip and you try to engage, Ash Auto with the slows will just slowly murder you as you try to walk away. So it's really volatile to. It's really punishing when you make a mistake as a Leona into an Ash or any melee.
Yeah, I agree. Um, let's kind of talk a little bit about this, Victor. I think it's something that's being really prioritized a lot this week. There's a lot of reasons for that to get the changes right. We'll call it more of a. I feel like it's more of a VGU with a slight change to his alt. I think that's the biggest thing. I know it's easier to get his passive thing up too, right? But realistically, it wasn't a big change. But it just seems that the small changes made this champion more or less busted. We talked about it on the stats episode, and I can't remember exactly, but I think he's like, what is it, 14-4 maybe, or 12-4, some ridiculous win rate with over like 15 games played. So what do you guys kind of think about this pick now? I don't know if you guys banned it or picked in your series. I can't remember. But yeah, what do you guys think of the Victor?
I can jump in on this real quick. Um, our last two matches, we've first picked Victor every game. Um, we've really heavily prioritized it, um, as anyone can see if they watch our matches. We think it's fine in lane, but once you have the ultimate upgrade, it feels like the power level of Release Smolder, where like you hit 225 and you're like destined to win the game 80% of the time. Victor's upgraded ultimate feels so powerful, in my personal opinion, that I think it's uh, incredibly strong.
Yeah, that makes a
Yeah,
lot of
to
sense.
jump in a bit on that. I mean, Victor got four straight buffs, right? Like his Q got shield increase, his W became more consistent, his E got a mana cost buff, and his ultimate now, gets a lot larger whenever he gets kills later on in the game. That's a lot of changes. It's a lot of buffs to give one champion, especially a champion who wasn't necessarily in a horrible spot beforehand. But yeah, aligning with most of what Geoprow said otherwise, that champion is just a bar in a sense, like to liken it to maybe like Ornn. If you get behind the clock on Ornn, you know that you're already out of time because he's going to upgrade items and start giving his team 5,000 gold of free stats. If you get behind the clock on Victor, it's pretty similar. He's going to get his upgrades. His upgrades are worth their weight in gold. On top of the fact that he's on top of you with above you rather with gold, and that just means that you're mega behind. So you really can't get behind the clock. It's really risky to play against Victor and to say, I'm going to win the whole game hard enough that his upgrades don't matter and I'm that much more stronger than him. So I think Victor's very strong.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I think that's a good breakdown. It's something I've talked about on the cast many times when I'm breaking down kind of these team comps. Anytime you're seeing any type of scaling, regardless if it's Victor, if it's Ornn, if it's Jinx, if it's Kog'Maw, if you're seeing some sort of scaling pick in the game, especially if there's multiple on one team, you got a window and where you have to win the game. Otherwise, that window gets so small that it comes down to just execution at that point. And the execution on one side is easier now because of that scaling. And I always talk about a lot of times it's around 30, 35 minutes. There's 3 to 4 items spikes on certain champions. And once they're at that, it's like you might as well just start talking about game two or something, because you might have just sent it by not winning enough early. The other option is just match scaling for scaling, and then it's kind of both just like, all right, we both want to go late game, we'll see what happens, and we just team fight. That's fine. But yeah, it seems like a lot of times these teams will opt into one team will opt into an earlier game comp, and one team will opt into a scaling comp. And it seems like right now specifically, the scaling is certainly winning out more times than not. The last thing I will note is this the play I was kind of talking about, and why I think that Free Breakfast comp was actually very very strong. So it's at the 22.5 minute mark in the game. On the video, it's 1 hour and 7 minutes. If you guys want to check that out, I think this team fight is absolutely disgusting, and why the Nocturne pick works so well with what they have going on. You're in a choke, you get the equalizer, you get the solar flare. The solar flare hits 3 members. The equalizer hits all 5 on top of a giant Victor art afterwards. It's just the team fight ends in an instant, and everyone just melts. It's pretty
I
disgusting.
I clipped this actually for the highlights. Yeah, this
Okay.
team fight was just nutty, and you see the value in this evolved Victor ult
Yeah, it was
in
absolutely
this fight as
disgusting.
well.
So it does suck they weren't able to pull out the win, but this is kind of the point where I was like, oh, maybe they can win just because like, they've got the scaling, they got everything they need really, right? But they got to the point in the game where it mattered, but I think a couple people got caught out towards the end game, and it was just that was pretty much all she wrote. So, but yeah, it was kind of a gross team fight setup.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think we are good to go on to the second series here, which was Caster Curse versus Scorch. And I know CLT, this was your series, so I always let you kind of talk a little bit about it, and you can lead us off with game one.
Yeah, game one. We pressed our luck against the Victor lottery because we seen Bananasaur ended up subbing in for Scorch again. I think this was his second time with them, and yeah, we pressed our luck against it because I wasn't 100% sure if he played it or even played it well. But yeah, Victor just started to run this game over. They banned out a couple of my like answers to it, so I had to default to Ari, and Victor just outpushes Ari and one shots her. Bulwark on the Blitzcrank, we thought Blitz would have been a decent pick, especially with the bot lane that they were showing. But Solus got super tanky, super ahead on this Cassante, and he just once he grouped, there was no chances to hit hooks. Alves bringing out his patented Rumble Jungle did very well, put a lot of pressure on the map in the early game, and I think at one point we were ahead, but we just ended up losing kind of the scaling war into that. But Scorch played really well this game, and Calico on her patented Zillion had a bunch of clutch R's and speed ups to dodge Blitzcrank hooks and stuff.
I was
Overall,
I would say your comp scales pretty well though. I mean, you do have the Philios, which I mean, I guess we should probably talk about that champion because we've seen it 3 times now. But yeah, I think you guys had the scaling. I don't think it was that bad.
I think we had comparable scaling, but Aphelios really likes to just have things walk into him and stand his ground. And when you've got stuff like Victor Ash, Wukong that keep people at arm's reach, and even Wukong likes to go in and make the first move with all the residual fire behind it, it would just became too much to walk into. We don't really have like a dedicated tank that could walk in the fog of war or anything. That's one thing we've noticed about our comps, and actually we switched up going into game two. Was once we got behind after a decent early game, we just didn't have the tank stats in our comp to be able to walk in the fog of war and overall like create space to let myself or the AD carry do some damage. But no, Diablo loves Aphelios. He plays it really well, and it fits with a lot of the stuff that we like to play, especially out of my champ pool.
Yeah. Well, before I have you point out what you think was the issue, like what really ended up breaking this game open, I want to ask, and I'm gonna go back to Geoprow here on this one, seeing that you do play bot lane, you're on the support. What is your thought process here on not just Aphelios, but the Blitzcrank with the Aphelios? Because I know for me, I don't like Blitzcrank with Aphelios, so I kind of want to hear your opinion though.
I think Aphelios is a champion who really enjoys having a Lulu or a Milio, something that can just stack shields on top of the innate healing he gets with Red Gun and his build a lot of the time. Um, it feels really strong to have some shield stacking on you from outside of your own kit when you're playing Aphelios. So in that way, I think Blitzcrank is a little bit risky. I also think Blitzcrank is one of the best choices into Zillion if you're a confident player. If you think you can get 2 or 3 hooks in lane on either character before level 6, I think Blitzcrank is a great way to try and tip the scales if you're playing support and playing confidently. So it feels like a selfish pick, but not a wrong pick in my eyes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's a good breakdown of it. I guess for me, especially in a team environment and competitive, I will lean most of the time towards the more of the team pick, just because the reality is like this is now a team game. Like solo queue, that's a solo queue game, right? That's all about you. You're trying to carry. So in that circumstance, I'm going Blitzcrank. I want to try to be the one to take over the game. But in this circumstance, I want to set up my true carry here, which is Diablo Fox to carry the game. One other option I think I would have left open, and as an idea maybe, if you really want to send the Blitzcrank, is maybe just have an Ivern jungle. Because you get all the stuff you talked about for Aphelios just in a different spot. Um, but that would be my only other idea for me personally, because I just think if you have that for Aphelios, something that can keep him safe and peel for him, I feel like the Aphelios can just really pop off here and be super strong.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we sorry, go
I
ahead.
really like the idea of an Ivern with the Aphelios, and I think real quick, just I had the luxury of my team not needing many bans when we played Scorch, so I was able to beg for the Zillion ban every game, because I think Zillion really changes the way the whole team has to play a team fight. and it's really hard for people who haven't been playing against a Zilean all lane to be in the right headspace to take fights in the way where you have to play around the Zilean ult. Um, so it's a really scary pick to play against, no matter what.
Yeah, that's a good breakdown of the Zillion. I think if you're playing it mid game, for me, it's just like hook the Zillion every time, full combo on him, and just blow him up before he gets a chance to click R, and now the fight's free. You know, if it's done correctly, right? I mean, there's a chance that they just turn on you with the Wukong and Victor maybe, and send it back at you, but uh, the fact is it's a displacement, right? The hook is a displacement. Hook them over a wall. It might be harder for them to follow up. Like, sure, a Wukong can jump the wall, but who cares if it's just Wukong, you know? So those things certainly could have been game changing, but it's hard, and that's where I'll say like the series overall was great, and this game in particular still was a close game. I think it still could have went either way. But what was your perspective on CLT? What was like the final nail in the coffin for this game?
Uh, we got victored, and I think we face checked Scorch's team comp, and Victor absolutely like QER'd our front line, which mainly was Al and Trundle who was behind, but then Alves. Like he's Zanya's part of the burst, but after that point, the Victor ult just moves me and Diablo's back. I think Bulwark got a decent hook onto Victor, but once Victor bought the Banshee's Veil, it there was just we ran out of targets to hook, and actually kind of uh talking to Calico once she actually has a Zillion player prefers playing against the hook champs because them as a bot lane know how to space against it and really can bait out hooks with speed ups and stuff like that. So we felt like the Blitzcrank would have added that kind of wild card value, but Scorch as a team played around it super well. But yeah, we got victored in like the late game once he hit the Shadow Flame Banshee's Veil. We just could never create space against that champion.
Yeah, I definitely get that. We've talked already in Nesium about Victor, and we'll probably bring him up more, but champion's busted.
Yep.
Let's go ahead and go into game two here. What was your game two breakdown here, CLT?
Uh, Game two, it was an interesting like draft. We picked Skarner first, and actually after we picked it, my top laner said he has no issues playing at top because he's been kind of getting focused, fired down quite a bit, even in this series and series past. He's like, I can just play a tank and just be there for the CC. And afterwards, they slammed Tarek Zareth, so I already knew it was a Zareth mid, but I felt like he didn't know the matchup too well. Plus, they left Anivia open, so I'm gonna play it for the most part. And after that, kind of rounding off the draft, when we got to B5, Alves brought up the fact that he's got experience on Belveth in the past, and since most of their comp is like melee but doesn't have the greatest amount of damage, he's just like, I'm gonna slam the Belveth here and we're gonna try and get ahead and snowball this game with Belveth passive. So we were expecting the Sejuani to go top, and then when we loaded up in the game and seen Viego, it was interesting. Al wasn't really ready for that much early game damage, but he held his own and got pretty tanky, and then bot lane did really, really well. So I don't know if Scorch like came in with this kind of draft or if they pieced it together, but it definitely felt like there was definitely a pretty low on damage and there was a lot of faith put into this Xerath to get ahead and being able to just poke down our comp, but never did. We ganked the hell out of this Xerath.
Yeah, Zereth was not having a fun game. I do
No.
remember that. Let's go here top lane here for a second, cause two junglers on the top. It's the classic. Let's just have fun top lane type deal. Have you? We've obviously seen Skarner before. Everyone's seen Skarner top when he was like first re-released, the new version, right? What is the idea here on the Viego top though? Do you think it even should be up here? And if so, what's the reasoning for it? You think, Brandino?
Generally, Viego's not your best top laner. It's mostly because like he's like a slightly worse version of Aurelia in some sense. He's a Bork user. On spike with Bork, he's pretty strong. He's slightly worse than Aurelia earlier with that, and Aurelia's got some better, in my opinion, ability to capitalize on that. Uh, Skarner loves to build his HP though, so in theory, the lane should be slightly Skarner favored up until the point where Viego gets his Bork, and now Skarner's just getting chopped to bits. Skarner's been the bar in top lane, but he kind of got nerfed out of it. If you can get away with playing safe long enough, you can still be a big tank. But I would assume that on the side lane, Viego's going to outscale him pretty fast after one item.
Yeah, that's a good breakdown of the matchup. It just still so funny to me when I was loading it. I'm like, wait a second, Skarn on top, Viego. What is happening here? Why do we have 4 junglers in my game right now? Like, why am I watching this? Um, but yeah, I think from what I saw from the Skarner, I didn't really like it a lot top. I don't think it was bad, but it definitely doesn't look like it used to. The Viego was just whatever. Like you said, it probably picked it because it was in the Skarner. And when I was watching it, you could use the Viego alt to dodge the Impale if you were timing it right. So I think that's also part of it too. It kind of allowed him to be safe. Never was able to get pulled out of turrets and just kind of farmed up and smacked the Skarner for free. But as the game progressed, like you kind of saw how it kind of fell off and more or less became useless, along with the fact that you have this Xerath not being able to play the game because of the setup that they had between mid jungle. So it was kind of a risky comp, I think, drafted here by Scorch, and it got punished, like you said, CLT, and the fact that they left Journivia up, which is crazy. Glad we got to see it.
Yeah, when they pick Xerath, it's traditionally a very Xerath favored matchup, but it was one of those days where I just didn't care, and I'm like, I'm slamming this, and we're gonna see how good of a Xerath he was. And once Alves burned Flash, I think he ganked level 3. Then the lane is completely in Anivia's favor. Early, Xerath easily like starts to outscale it, even if they find a way to get it to an even state. But he just kept pushing into me so I can trade CS, and okay, I'll just see you in the team fights, and we're gonna have some fun.
Yeah. Have you guys played? I should have asked about the last series, but have you guys played either of these teams? I cannot remember.
Yep.
We played against Caster Curse. We haven't played it against. Actually, did we play against Scorch? I think we played against Scorch as well.
Yeah, the first match we hadn't played against either of the teams. We've played against the rest of Group A.
Okay. So then this is a good breakdown here. So, what is your kind of personal opinions of playing against these two teams? Then I'd like to kind of hear that a little bit as we're kind of letting game two play over.
Oh, be gentle.
I got to hear Geoprow tell me about how we definitely have to ban Zillion, as stated earlier. So the Zillion's not allowed on the premises. Uh, but yeah, there's definitely some respect to be had for the Anivia. I saw the first blood that happened in this game. In general, I think Anivia is a 1v9 champion. Very good to kind of respect that. It's consistent at all points in the game for being really strong. And there's not many people who play that. So that's kind of like one of the specialty picks. Zillion for Geoprow seems to be one of the scary ones for me. Mid lane, I think an Anivia player is able to take over games really easily. So overall, I like those picks. I like the inventiveness from these teams to play stuff like Skarner and Viego top. That can throw people off of their entire game plan when they don't know what their spikes are versus certain champs. So I like that. I want to see more of that throughout all series. I want to see people be inventive like that.
Cool. That's a great
Yeah,
breakdown.
and I think for me, um, focusing more on the bot lanes that I've played against, I think both of these bot lanes did a good job trying to stop us from doing what we like to do, which is perma fighting before the jungler has a chance to intervene, and then continuing to perma fight for the rest of the game. Um, like there are times in bot lane where you end up scuffling and somebody dies, but the real problem is when you die and then you die again and then you die again and then you die again. And I think both of these bot lanes did a good job of uh, stemming the bleeding when they got uh, poked out and not like giving up everything just from getting a small disadvantage. Not that we got an advantage every game either. I remember we got double killed at the very start of our game against Caster Curse. They played the
Yes.
early lane really well. Um, so I think, at least from a lane perspective, both these teams have very good bot lanes.
Well, that's really high praise coming from you guys, considering you guys are on top of the world right now. But yeah, I agree. I think, and this is something I've brought up before, and as we're gonna kind of get into game three here in a second, this has been a very competitive split. And even if you look at some of these records, you're like, oh, a team is at 0 and 3 or a team is at 1 and 2. I don't think the teams are bad. I just think that a lot of it comes down to really good drafting and really good execution. It's um, something that has been a big thing I've noticed. The teams that are getting really good at drafting, they tend to have a high advantage going into these series, and makes their execution much easier to pull off. You're going to see them win more. Spicy picks help, of course. You know, like we just talked about with these funny topics here. Um, but yeah, there's definitely it's definitely not what it was the first couple times I've been in the league. Like this split feels like any team can kind of get a win any week, um, and you have to respect that. So good on you guys for being where you guys are at. But as far as 3-0, but yeah, I do think Caster Curse and certainly Scorch continue to show why they should be here, and I'm hopefully my boy COT can pull off a nice little playoff run here at the end, and can pull some stuff out of his hat. But with that said, let's go ahead and jump into game three here, CLT.
Yeah, game three. This game was so much fun to play in, not gonna lie. Uh, they finally dropped the Syndra ban, which I thought the Syndra ban was kind of interesting to say the least. I know they banned it against me games 1 and 2, which I guess if they left Victor up and first picked it in game 1, it makes sense. But game 2, I was kind of interesting to not ban Anivia but ban Syndra. So they first picked Syndra, and then we 1-2 Skarner Nami. Nami had a bunch of success last game, and I think that champion really stops or prevents Scorch from doing a lot of what they want to do. Like Ares and Rusty definitely like to move forward and start the fights with some support from their bot lane here. So Nami was really good at the peel and zone control. But then we picked the Swain thinking that it was Syndra mid, and then lo and behold, Boonstra took a bot lane. So our bot lane ended up going Caitlyn Nami's pretty strong early game lane, and did quite well. Got a couple kills down there, and the Corki went mid, which I got bullied around a little bit because Corki's just so dumb as a champion in general. But all in all, we fought, we scrapped, we did pretty well, and then we made a couple of bad rotations there in the mid game. And then Rusty had just an absolute insane Baron steal. We didn't even see him charging up the Poppy ult from Fog of War, and then he belts out our jungler with about like 3.5k left on the Baron. And then we're just sitting there looking like, oh shit. And Rusty just comes up, cues it, and then smites it, and they get Baron, and that was kind of the tipping point where they had to push and won the game off that. So it was like I said, well fought, but Rusty ended up killing the dreams there at the end there.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, there was a fight around Drake that also kind of was pretty unfortunate for you guys. I know um, you guys had a decent setup, and they just kind of caught you walking in a bush. And if you guys are maybe able to get this Drake on a soul point, it's going to be really hard for them because Swain with a Mountain Soul just sounds disgusting to have to deal with.
Hmm.
Not including the Skarner as well. I mean, Skarner's obviously going to be stacking HP. You're going to love that, a nice shield. Um, but yeah, the fight kind of it went unfortunate. Poppy had a nice ult out there, and that's I think what kind of stopped you guys from continuing to scale and just putting yourselves in a good position to
Hmm.
take over this game. It was really sad to see. Like I know you really wanted to win the series here, and you guys definitely had your moments, and that's why I think you guys are such a strong team. Like Scorcher, no slouches, and
Hmm.
pushing them to a game three on the edge of their seats. I'm sure they were for a good chunk of this game was really respectable.
Yeah, yeah, that brush check was painful.
Yeah. Well, here's a question for you guys. This is more of a in the game, like in the situation. How does it feel if you're on the end of that Baron steal? Do you feel like just deflated and like the game just kind of feels like screw it, game's over type moment, or where's your team's mindset based off of like a situation like that?
I can
I
tell
know.
you, I can tell you from
Go
our
ahead.
game, it deflated everything because we had such good momentum, and we clawed back even after the face check. But dude, Rusty, like I said, we didn't see him in Fog of War because I was looking for him, trying to like Swain E him to disrupt the ult, and you just seen Skarner get pelted 2 screens away. You know, at the end of the day, I had to give Rusty props on that. Sorry.
No, it's fine. Um, yeah, for me personally, I don't know about the rest of my team, but um, I feel like I'm not very tilted by plays like that. Like, oh, okay, we lost the Baron. I feel maybe a little bit desperate. Like I'm gonna start running into their jungle and sitting in bushes and praying that they'll walk into me. But I'm not gonna give up the game off nothing. I'm just gonna start playing more stupid and hope that it works.
Well, I guess everybody's heard it here now. Geoprow is gonna start running it down your game if something goofy happens, and
For
there's
sure.
your chance to win.
I almost spit up my drink here in that one. That was great.
um, but yeah, I mean that's a good understanding. I mean, like things are gonna happen like this. Like we all gotta remember, and this is kind of for me, right? Like as a jungler, you cannot be perfect every game. It's just not real life. You're gonna lose 50-50s. You're gonna make mistakes on smites. I was notorious for last split losing smites to like Jinx rockets and stupid stuff like that. Um, so I have settled down my smiting where I was just like, you know what? Let's just like okay, we see it's coming. Everybody just stop DPSing. And I like more or less will like yell at my team, just stop. We don't have to worry about anything. If jungler's not there, it's fine. Just like stop. If it's a 50-50, it's different. Those things you got to just play with what it is. Mm, but yeah, I mean that you can't get mad at like you said. Rusty made a play of the ages to basically win this game, and so you kind of just gotta respect it at that moment. Like there's not much more you could have done unless somebody
Yeah.
really like went out there and tried to zone Rusty more, which I guess is an option. But I don't know if anyone can really come off the DPS on the Baron, and I don't think Nami's safe to kind of walk in there. Like I think she just gets killed by the other members around. So it's hard. It's definitely hard.
I I hate that Baron pit, that specific setup with those 2 walls there. That just it makes it really, really hard for red side to like defend it because there's so many vision tricks. Like I just watched it back again. Rusty red trinkets the ward that we put there, but no one hit it, so we didn't even know he was charging up the ult. So if it was any other like Baron pit setup, I know there's like 2 or 3 different ones, we would have seen it and been able to react to it. But still, props to Rusty, man. That's why I clipped it. It's a highlight.
Yes, very very clean. Well, if that's all we have to talk about for this series, CLT, you good to move on? Are you feeling comfortable with what we talked about?
Yeah, yeah. After revisiting that Baron steal, we can definitely move on. I'm good.
Okay. Well, then that's great because then we get to talk about a very fun series here that our guest played in this weekend and or not this weekend. It was I think like Thursday or something. I forget, but nonetheless, yeah, it was Coinflip versus TK Gamers. I don't remember when you guys played. So, but yeah, so I don't know if either one of you guys just want to lead us off. You're more than welcome to do so though on game one.
Yeah, sure. So this is a team that we've been kind of waiting to face. We know Bori, um, and so we were kind of like getting into this tournament. We were hoping to be able to face them. We got to this moment. Um, we this is the week where they did all the Victor changes. So I thought it was pretty clear that we'd want to have some Victor priority on it, and indeed, for both of the games, we're able to get the Victor. I kind of wanted to lay down and see, what are they going to play into it? Do they have the ability to overlook the fact that he's in a strong state, and can they take over the game from it? And we almost met our match in that, especially in game one. They kind of picked it with a Zoe, and the Zoe really had her way with mid lane for a while. So I'm still happy with the Victor in general, though. Even in worst case scenarios, I think Victor's a little bit too strong right now. And we just played our game otherwise. Geoprow coming out with the Elite Sport, the classic at this point. And I got to pick Shen, which typically gets banned against me. It's one of my stronger top laners, and it really enables our team to kind of make a lot more of the coin flip plays get a little weighted. What do you have to worry about when you know you're getting a 500 health shield in case things go south? So people are a bit more brave, and I think that that kind of helped us get game one off to a good start, or a good mid game, I'd say. Actually, we kind of lost our early game.
Yeah, I was gonna ask for clarification. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, but what is your 80's actual name? Is it swim? Like what? How do y'all
Swum.
swim? Okay, I've been calling him swim because I just didn't know and it just was easy for me. But okay, so it is swim. All right, sounds good. I will make sure not to mess that up in the future.
That's fine.
I think I had a same situation with your guys' mid too. So I don't remember who was in the chat telling me, but I remember one of the games I casted. I was being told what it was, and I was like, okay, thank you.
Yeah, we got Brandino, Aristotelian, Krieger, Swum, Geoprow.
Yeah, yeah. I forgot what I was calling him, but yeah, somebody told me it was Krieger. So, but yeah, that's very helpful for me. Thank you. Yeah, do you guys want to talk about this at least? I know it's been pretty good support in solo queue for a while now. I don't know how many patches it's been, but it's been up there. I noticed that it's been making some headway. So is this something you've always had, Geoprow, or is this something that you just more recently picked up because you discovered it was kind of busted?
I haven't had it forever, but I've had it for longer than it's been meta by a pretty good margin. I think I've been playing it for about 2 years before it started getting a little bit of play rate bot lane. So I have a lot more practice on it than a lot of people do. It took me a long time actually to adjust to the recent changes Elise got that gave her a bunch of quality of life improvements. I think she's actually just broken right now, specifically in support because of Bloodsong. Um, Bloodsong is a ridiculous support item and is probably by far the best of the different support items if you're a damage dealer. Um, it's close to me thinking that even if you're like playing a Xerath support or something like that, you should take Bloodsong anyway. Like it sounds ridiculous, but that's how strong I think the item is. It's almost equivalent in damage to a Lich Bane, and it gives you 400 gold instead of costing 3,000. And it procs on Elise's Q, which is really, really strong. Um, I half pick Elise when I see it's a good scenario, and I half pick it just to try and uh, force bans out of other people. So please leave Elise up if you want to play against Elise. I love coin flicking bot lane with Elise and going up when you try to kill me. Uh, yeah, that's. What was the question again? Did I answer it all right?
I think you did. Here's what I'm gonna say. I think since Elise is getting popularity in support now, and it's not being like something you can just like nobody knows about it. I can play. I have a feeling it's gonna go, and I said this yesterday as well. You're gonna see something happen where, oh, like Zyra was a good example I brought up. Zyra became really popular in support, and there was like really no answers for a bit, right? And then all of a sudden, dude just like, and I'm pretty sure it was Wolf that did this, right? He just goes, "Oh yeah, by the way, this counters it," and they're like, "Wait a second, what counters it?" And there's like, "It's MF," and then they pull that shit out, and then Zyra support just like all of a sudden just starts falling off a cliff. I have a feeling that eventually someone will discover like a really strong counter into it. Not saying you won't be able to play it because you've been playing it a long time. I'm just simply saying once that happens, it will probably fall back to where it's been prior to what it is now, right? The popularity on it. So I'm just kind of waiting for that to happen, and I think it eventually will. I don't know if it's going to be in our league or anything. I just think someone will be like, "Yo, to beat this in the solo queue, just pick this," and then it'll just like clap it, and then everyone's like, "All right, at least support doesn't matter."
Yeah, I could totally see that happening. I think the play rate is still a little bit too low for anyone to do real cooking, and I've played it into most every matchup at this point. I think tanks are definitely its worst matchup, but if you can uh, correctly predict when tanks are trying to engage on you, you can use spiderlings a lot of the time to counter their engage. Um, I really just think its damage is a little bit overtuned for the amount of income support gets plus Bloodsong. So as long as you're playing correctly, you should be able to 1v1 the AD carry for most of the game, which puts your team at an advantage, hopefully.
Yeah, unless the AD carry just gets just so good that they make you look funny, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And there's definitely some AD carries in the league that could do that. I mean, I just watched Bori make a really sick play in a 1v2. I mean, you did end up killing him, but like it was kind of impressive nonetheless in that situation. And obviously, if you're not putting Elise there, he probably gets away with double killing. Uh, but you have just, like you said, the damage there. So, and I did like the Zoe. I did agree. The Zoe looks pretty good into the Victor. I caught like some of the game live. I remember and just kind of seeing like, oh crap, Zoe's kind of popping off here, and I didn't really know where it was gonna go for the rest of the game, like who was gonna win, just because I thought the Zoe was doing a lot of work. So
Zoe's naturally been a pretty good pick in the Victor. It's just who wants to play her in competitive when you got stuff like Syndra and Hui out there.
yeah,
Yeah, Zoe felt super threatening to us, especially with the lead that she ended up having. I think she was 6-0 at some point. But as soon as we started leaving lane phase and making plays around the map, Zoe felt like almost instantly ineffective to me personally. Like, she had one final team fight when we were starting to leave lane phase where she was kind of the deciding factor for us losing a fight. Um, but then you don't really notice too much impact from it for the rest of the game. And I don't know if that was just because our AD carry on Jin was just super far ahead, or if we were playing around it, but uh, it kind of felt like it fell off really quickly.
yeah, it
Yeah,
could probably go both ways, to be honest. But I definitely want to see it again because I think it did a lot of work into the pick. So I definitely would love to see the Zoe pick again.
As long as it's not jungle.
Yeah. Let's not talk about that either. Freaking trolls.
Hey, it was Standby that did it last
I
split.
know you stand by, you darn troll.
Uh,
But no, I think him playing at mid, it looks clean too from him, and he's a very gifted mid laner. So I'm not really surprised at the outcome of the mid matchup in the early game, regardless. Not saying your guys' mid is not good. I'm just saying what I've seen. I've seen standby longer, so. Um, but you guys are really really clean and like movement as a team look really really strong. Um, how was it overall playing against this team though? Because obviously I know you guys know Bori, but like was it two? Yeah, two of their five members won the split last year. So you got some championship caliberness going on this team. So what was it like playing against them?
yeah, I'll take this one. I think that Bori's team has consistently played better than us in the early game. They've been able to just like hand stiff us. I know in my scenario, for example, I've had that situation happen. I think that our team is really, really good at playing aggressive at all stages in the game. And if somebody has stage fright for a second, we try to take advantage of that. We also try to set up faster. And so, in general, I think that the way that these tournaments and these matches will all play out isn't actually as much based off of like rank diff or all that stuff. It's based off of your team coordination and your team and the effectiveness that's brought about from that. So I think in as these games go on, as we get to playoffs and as we get to quarterfinals, semifinals, all that stuff, that gives more time for teams that are shaking off that early beginner working together with these people you haven't played with, or maybe you already played with them, but now it's a new meta. That's going to give them more time to adapt and get ready for that. And teams like Bori's team, like Tom Kench Gamers, are going to really solidify because they already have the hands, and now they've got the coordination, and now they're monsters. So we ended up taking this series, but that does not mean in any way, shape, or form that they're underdogs to a large extent or that they're behind. And they are very fearsome. I overall have a lot of respect for them and think that they can be contenders for the championship again.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think I just watched the ending fight too, because I definitely didn't catch this. Was a quadra kill by Swum? Did he get the penta? I mean, I'm playing it out right now, but Did he end up getting the penta?
Yes, he does
Okay.
get the penta.
Nice. I think that might be the
Yep.
first penta of the split too. I don't recall anybody else. Last one we had a lot. I was like kind of shook. Like we just like was penta after penta. It almost felt like for the first 2 or 3 weeks. This one I haven't seen like anybody get a penta. So nice.
Yeah, this was our one and only one, and I did clip this.
Nice.
So
Well, good on him. Congratulations, my
Yeah,
friend.
Swum's a monster. He survives in every lane once I abandon him, and somehow ends up getting all the kills late game. He's such a good player. I love playing with him.
The
wait, he
20,
went.
23 and 10, by the way, is absolutely disgusting. Just get it. Everybody's getting on his back right now. Obviously, at least that game. Get in the backpack, take a stroll.
Uh,
Let's go ahead and talk about game two though. Let's what kind of happened here? It seemed like you guys got a very similar comp too. I think was anything switched out here actually? Just Elise and Graves were switched for Nami and Mumu. So
That's right.
yeah, that was pretty much the same comp.
So this game, we kind of have this synergy that we see with Amumu's passive being, you can increase the amount of magic damage people take. They take true damage, and Victor being currently really strong, and both of them are team fight AOE monsters. So that we got it taken from us in the first game. I don't know if that was a shutdown by Bori's team that they were trying to aim for. So if they just had their own reason for picking Amumu, but we took it game two, and it ended up working out very well for us. Otherwise, though. What's broke, you don't fix. So we kind of took the same champions in most other scenarios. Nami just felt like a better pick into this comp. So we ran it back again, and it ended up working out for us. Ultimately, felt like even though Victor got behind early, Victor's kind of in a very strong state. So even though he got behind in game one, I still felt like he was extremely strong. And so, barring that happening again to a worse extent, I mean, he's still going to be what I consider to be a very relevant mid laner, if not a monster later on. So
Yeah, yeah. Actually,
most of our comps are going to dictate around that.
I do want to say I think the Silas doesn't even look bad into it either. I think Standby identifying two pretty good champions into the Victor pick, but again, it's like that you have that timer set. So, um, I don't know what the answer would have been to just to avoid that timer. I mean, they do have Ornn and Jinx, so realistically, the scaling is maybe even in their favor. Like it's pretty close.
Yeah.
I would say yeah, it is in their favor. So maybe maybe just making sure you play for that. I don't know how long was this game. Let's see. It was a 30-minute game, so I'm not sure exactly what kind of caused it to kind of break in your guys' favor, but I'm assuming they took some fight maybe when they shouldn't have with a scaling comp, and it cost them. That's what I'm assuming is the
Yeah,
two
well,
causes.
so their comp is definitely, if you go front to back in your 45 minutes and everyone's 6 items, Bori's comp, the Tonkin's Gamers comp is much stronger. They have really strong beefcakes. They've got Silas taking really strong ultimates for himself as well. And you're right, he's a counter pick to Victor. The thing that happened though was a lot of the mid game fights where like they're not necessarily extremely strong. Ornn passive hasn't kicked in yet, right? They're still kind of, they're good, but they're not in their strongest state is when we hit a lot of good Amumu and Victor combos. And so those combos brought us into overall game win at the end of the day. We had a few multi-man Victor and Amumu ult combos that just annihilated their team. So those are unfortunate from their side. If they're just caught into that exact one spot at the right moment in time, they just end up losing right then, and that's ended up what happened. If they get to a late game state, I do think that they would win out.
Yeah, I mean, and they were able to push it to 30, but they definitely needed more time. I think maybe closer to 35 would probably be like a really good point in the game. I assume at that point, if the Ornn is not too far behind, majority of the Ornn items are starting to come out. So um, that would be kind of like the angle. If I'm in this comp, I'm just telling everybody, hey, let's just make sure not to give them too much gold, and let's just play for Drakes as we can, because obviously, like, if you guys identify this, you guys are probably going to try to play for some of the Drakes as well, um, to keep them from getting that super strong scaling advantage. Which I do note you guys have one Drake, but man, one Drake at 17 minutes seems crazy to me. What was going on in this game? That's such a late, like a late second Drake was almost 18 minutes. Like that's crazy.
There's a lot of contention.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a lot of really small edges that we were developing early game. Our mid laner lost a little bit again, but did a great job of just keeping even in gold the whole game, despite losing a few kills early. Um, Standby did a great job pressuring our mid, but our mid kept up in gold most of the game. And then I think the main thing that we did really well in the middle of the game was just I don't know if we ever team fought in like the earlier mid game where there was an Ornalt happening. Um, we had a really lucky break in one of our early to mid fights where Ornn was kind of low and was trying to back and TP back in. And if Ornn actually got to back in TP, we would have hard lost the fight. But we were able to cancel his back like 2 or 3 times consecutively and then win the fight uh, off of a really good Amumu engage in the meantime. I think we just did a really good job of preventing them from getting the ideal front to back in a lot of these scenarios. And that gave us a dragon lead and eventually uh, a pretty easy Baron and then just run it down mid game end.
Yeah, I mean, I'm watching one of these fights around Drake 3, and you guys set up so nicely. I know I see, uh, I was calling him Aristotle. That's his nickname. Aristotle had a really, really nice play where he flashed over after a bubble that you landed Geoprow, and that just turned into a pretty much a clean swipe. And that's what you guys were talking about, where you had the Mumu R layered on top of the Victor R. But yeah, you guys did really, really nice setups here. And led to you guys obviously winning the series. I'm looking forward to seeing the next 2 weeks of you guys play. Hopefully, I can cast a series. I don't think I've casted you guys a split, so hopefully, I can get one of your guys' series before the regular season ends. But it's been so hard for me because some teams just seem to play on like the worst days for me. Like Backdoor Bandits are playing today, and I really can't cast after this. It's just unfortunate. So.
I think this was on a Wednesday night, so this
Yeah.
wasn't really necessarily the best timing. It was just what worked.
Yeah, definitely not good for us. We usually either doing our stuff on Wednesday or I'm working late on Wednesday, and I'm just so exhausted that I just do not want to come back and cast. And it's just
Yeah.
that's why I just tell everybody I'm aiming for more weekend casts, like Friday through Sunday would be like or Friday through like Monday, I guess. I can kind of do Monday, but no one's really done a series on Monday. And then the first time I do a series on Monday, it's around Christmas when I have shit to do. That's really funny. So. But yeah, it was a good series. You know, good win for you guys. And have you guys watched the power ranking episode yet?
I haven't been able to because I was at work today.
Okay, then I won't reveal anything for you. I'll let you guys watch it. I think you guys will be very happy with the episode. But I'm not gonna reveal anything till then. So. You guys are ranked number 17. Don't worry about it. You guys are trash.
Oh,
Understandable.
I was super tilted when we were 9th first week.
I mean, you gotta cut me some slack. My reasonings are fair, I think, for the most part.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, I don't know enough about your team, and now that I'm learning more about it and seeing it, I can dissect better on where you guys kind of land for me, and that goes for a lot of teams that have not been here prior to the split. So, but with that said, we can get into the next series, which is Small Brain No Mechanics versus Peanut Butter Jelly, and the first of Group B. So, CLT, I know you didn't cast, but you caught some of it. Do you want to start off with game one, or do you want me to do game one? I don't remember.
You go ahead and do game one. I caught a little bit of game two and a majority of game three here because I just came back from, I think, casting another series for this.
Okay. Yeah, well, you were playing on Thursday too, so I think that's what it was.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah.
Thursday was a really booked day. But yeah, so as far as our setup, I mean, we identified the victor, that it was very, very strong. We were on top of that, just like you guys. And our mid laner Zema is not afraid to play a lot of things, and certainly likes Victor. So we had a plan to just kind of play around that scaling and then draft around making sure these champs can do their job, right? Tristana and Victor can do that. So we made sure to not give Peanut Butter Jelly anything that would disrupt that. Stuff like Udyr, Vi, and Rakan. Like we took those off the board, but like we can't give these guys free access. And then we decided that we were playing some Swain bot, and we wanted to go blue side first game if we could, and so we got that. We're like we can't let them have Swain because our Swain counter comp that we were gonna build was more based on red side. So it was really fun to kind of break down this draft. The PB&J is a really, really strong team. Even though they lost to us, I don't think they're like a true 1 and 2 team. They're just, again, you got a lot of competition going on right now, and due to that, somebody has to lose, right? But yeah, so this game one, that's kind of what we were looking for. Uh, they did try to take the Syndra into the Victor, which is not bad. Obviously, in the Victors we've all talked about, but again, doesn't really matter as long as you're able to get to your scaling points. Um, we did worry about a little bit about the Corki when that came out because Corki's skill is really really strong. And then they did have a really nice like J4 Rumble combo. But that's why I picked Wukong. I think I picked Wukong B5, if I remember correctly. I just picked it to disrupt. Like, I was basically doing what the Udyr would have done if the Udyr existed in the game. I was just there to be a distraction most of the fights. I wasn't focused on trying to be the carry. I didn't go, like, Triforce build. I'm like, let me just get some tankiness, some bruiser items, and just mess around, have fun with this game, and let my team carry me. And so it was really nice to have that. I love getting carried. But that was what we kind of did there. As far as the in game, I mean, kind of remember. Really, we definitely played for scaling. I remember there was a really nice mid fight we had that was just literally right in the mid lane, and it led to like either a Drake or a Baron off the play. Um, but we were focused on stacking the Drakes and getting to our scaling, and yeah, it was just overall a really fun game one. And like I said, I like the comp they drafted around, but it didn't really seem like Darkhound was as comfortable on the J4 as like his previous picks, and I think he more drafted this for the team, which I respect. Uh, but yeah, we were able to punish their comp a bit with what we wanted and just scale up. So um, I don't know if you guys have any opinions on anything with the series or with the not the series but with the game and the comps going on here. If anybody wants to chime in, feel free.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Victor, so I'm gonna go ahead and praise the fact that you guys got the Victor, and I think that you have a very good team fight comp oriented around it. Tristana is interesting. I haven't seen Tristana in bot lane in ages, so it's kind of interesting to see Tristana returning back there. Um, but yeah, overall, I think that your draft is overall better. The conditions for the enemy team's draft, Jello, PB&J's draft, are a little bit harsher. It's really good for Rumble and Jarvan to get a good combo off, but aside from that, their engage is kind of limited. It's a lot easier for someone like Wukong to get in there and just layer an ulti with Leona and Victor and just like try to plow through people. So that's for 5v5s. And so the way that I look at comps, there's teamfight comps and there's 1-3-1 comps. Usually there can be exceptions, but usually those are the two types. And I think that you guys win in both of those in this scenario. I think you win the side lane. I think you win the team fights. So overall, I think that your draft is in a better spot here.
Yeah, as far as the Tristana play, this is an old mono champion, our AD carry. He the first split we ever played was actually last year's would have been fall split, and we loved Tristana at the time. It was pretty strong. So it kind of is in a better spot now to be played, I think, in the bot lane compared to what it was for like the last I don't know, basically the whole season. um, so we felt comfortable drafting it here, and he likes it a lot, and he doesn't mind it into Corki. It's kind of more of his Corki pick here. It's not like great, but it's not horrible, right? Um, and then it allows him to get resets and play off the Leona too. So that's really why we picked that. But yeah, as far as everything else you said, I definitely agree. I know Cassante is like super strong still. This champion doesn't go away no matter what you do to it. Vic ended up getting a solo kill in the top lane, which was nice. Helped the game out a lot when you're putting Rumble behind. Um, but yeah, they definitely didn't like give up and like say whatever in this game. Even when we had the lead, I know we spiraled up to like I want to say 5 or 6, 7K at one point. But because we were just playing for late game, we played a lot slower than I think we normally would have played. Because a lot of times we draft more of a heavy early game comp. So I think PB&J could have had opportunities to certainly turn the game around for themselves, but they just were never able to really find it. And it was a really fun game. So
Yeah, I just want to say thank you guys for having me on. I gotta head out, but I appreciate it, and good luck with the rest of the casts.
no, of course, Brandino, glad to have had you.
Yeah, appreciate you.
Have a good night, guys.
You too.
Peace.
Bye. But yeah, we can jump into game two. I don't know how long Geoprow is going to stay on. Hopefully, maybe a little longer. We'll see what he's got going on. But um, let's get into game two here. And CLT, I think you did catch some of this game too, right?
Yeah, I caught like the near the end of this. so I didn't get a chance to see the early game and how it went. But looking at the draft, I mean, we see a rare Cassiopeia pick, and then Swain going bot lane was also quite interesting. So
Yeah, yeah. So this one was our if they take Swain, we have an answer for it comp, and that's where the Cassiopeia came into play. And if you see in the team fights, like we shredded this Swain a lot. Like he didn't really have much he could do into specifically the Cassio pick, but our team, even with me being a Skarner player, still clearly not used to playing into the Skarner, which might be partly because we're always banning it every time we play Flex Q. I don't want to ban it, but my mid laner just wants to ban it every time. I feel like sometimes leaving up these certain champions is good to get experience on because when one team is on blue side, right, there are going to be more than one power pick. Right now, Victor's up there, Skarna's up there. So there's definitely some champions you can full send on at that B1, and so you got to consider like, do you want to ban all three power picks, or do you maybe want to ban something that they're also playing that could mess up with one of your comps? And usually you're kind of forced to at least toss a ban in there on something else, and so you end up with a situation where one of the power picks are standing up, and in this game it was the Skarner, so they were able to slide that through the draft, and Darkhound did really well on it and disrupted so many of our fights, and or just like early not just his fights but also being able to disrupt and find plays before objectives, getting picks and such. He played it really well, and we didn't respect that enough. But we definitely had like opportunities to win the game. But yeah, the Skarner was very punishing.
yeah, I feel like the Aurora top was a little interesting. I felt like you didn't have the greatest amount of front line to let Sivir and Cassio get like super rolling in the fight because both of those champions like prolonged fights. So I thought that was quite interesting. But yet they picked Darius B5, so flexing the Aurora top made sense. So
Yeah, but
it is interesting.
Gameplay still had a really nice game on the Darius too. I mean, he popped off for sure.
Yeah.
Something I wanted to ask our support here, since he's still with us, is the Amumu support. So something you play, something you like, you know. What's your opinion on that?
I think it can be a really strong pick, but it needs to be paired with like a Samira or something very aggressive that can prioritize like jumping down their throats once you have a Mumu ult. Um, Sivir doesn't seem like the best choice for me with it, but I can see it being good as like a way to get your jungler out of a bad matchup as another option too. Like you can early pick an Amumu and then flex it down to support and just kind of AFK the lane and then end up with an Amumu ult for team fights. It can be super powerful, but it kind of limits your early game options if you don't have a good synergy with it as an AD carry. Um, I think it like on the draft as a whole, it's really good that PB&J were able to flex the Swain to bot lane because Swain gets hard dumpstered by Cassiopeia. I think it's a really smart counter pick to take Cassiopeia into Swain, and the fact that they were able to have their AD carry competent on the Swain pick just as a backup option is really good for them.
Yeah, so funny enough, actually, we figured it was actually gonna go bot. We knew of that chance, and I can't remember if we saved Casio as like where we picked it. Let me see.
You R5 Cassio.
We did R5 Casio. So basically, what happened
Yeah,
was we're gonna probably play Casio here anyways, but let's see what they picked mid. And we knew some of the mid matchups, and one of those was the Ari, and Cass is pretty good in Ari as well. So we're like, if this ends up going out, like we have a great Casio option here, and that's basically what happened. So
yeah, it's still a super smart pick. It just happens to be that like it's really good against Swain, and it's really good against Swain in lane separately from also just being good against Swain.
yeah,
So it's a really nice pick.
yeah. I think the biggest thing, like I said, for this game was we were in it the whole game. Like there was no time where I was like, okay, we're just done for. We just didn't respect the Skarner enough, and that was the biggest thing. I think they drafted a pretty decent comp, and the Darius did get the pop off a bit, seeing I wasn't really able to build the armor I wanted early. Since there was a lot of AP, so he just kind of shreds me in fights. I did start finally building armor towards the late game, but I feel like at that point the game might have just been lost, and maybe that was a mistake by me. But I did also mention I feel like Wukong is still a better option here over Poppy. Like Poppy's super nice into the Ari, but we already have a ground, right? We already have a really nice um, alt that can CC her down, which is still Cassiopeia's alt, right? As well as the Amumu. So we have everything we need to lock down Ari. I feel like we don't need more lockdown. I feel like we need a disruption again and also a shred. And Wukong is super good in the Skarner. It's something that every time I've played into the Skarner, I've had success, and every time I'm the Skarner playing into Wukong, I'm like, okay, this game is playable, but it's a lot harder than it should be because this champion's like pretty strong here. So um, that's the only thing I would have changed personally, I think. But yeah, the Mumu we like the it was definitely a flex for us, and um, it's really good in Rakan too. So I don't know if you've ever played it into Rakan yourself, but it's super strong into him. It kind of does a similar thing to Leona and Rakan.
Yeah, I like playing melees similar to a Mumu into Rakan. Rakan has a really tough time if you're able to ever cancel his W. It really shuts off a lot of his ability to play the game. And Amumu is one of those champions where if you have the perfect timing, you can have that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so it was a fun game too. They took it off of us and pushed it to game three. And now game three, I know for sure you caught on this one. So I want to hear from your perspective, CLT, what game three, a little bit. CLT, are you there?
Yo, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. But yeah, I want to hear your opinion on game three more because I know this one you were actually here to be able to witness and watch and catch the draft and stuff. So what's your
Uh,
breakdown here?
yeah, game three was swift. Like I thought PB&J's draft was interesting. Like there was a lot of eggs put into the Gwen Corky like basket, but it just felt like you guys had just answers to all that. I know Vic, seeing him last split, he's an absolute insane Scion player, and it feels like Scion is a really solid answer in the Mundo, not necessarily like lane, yet Vic knows how to play the lane and punish Mundo. But overall, like Scion just scales and becomes this meatball beef tank quicker than Mundo. While he doesn't have the late game tank stats that Mundo does with like the team fight ult, getting value and stuff like that. Vic played this game really well, and then you were super proactive in this game, and that's what I think you guys sent the tempo of this game to be much quicker than what PB&J wanted it to be. I thought the Galio mid was a decent pick looking at your guys' comp, but it wasn't it just didn't it's not enough damage and it's not enough agency early. Like you're kind of when you're picking Galio into like a ranged mage, especially a late game mage, then you're kind of surrendering the laning phase, which you have to pressure them. So Zema had a really free laning phase on this Victor, and overall they had no way to get to your guys' backline. And like I said, you guys just sped this game up super fast. So this got out of control quickly for you guys or for them.
Yeah, I I liked our draft a lot because we were able to get the victor again, which again teams are like saying like, hey, we have a way to shut down Victor. We'll just pick this. But I really feel like right now Victor is basically just straight up pick or ban. I don't think it's and what I mean by that is like if you're not picking him, you probably should just be banning him. And I'm sure teams are gonna take note of that after this week. Um, the other thing is we did do some kind of changes as far as like where we wanted to go for jungle. They were like, hey, wait a second, like we see Galio already. I think we did maybe, or I don't know if we saw Galio yet. I can't remember. I gotta go back and look at that. But point is, we saw something where like, well, let's just take the J4 away so that the way the J4 can't um, jump on this Victor for free, and we'll just take it instead. And there was stuff like that where we were able to make those changes because we were basing kind of off of what they did game one, and they were going for a similar comp in game one where they already drafted the Corki early, so they were kind of giving us an inkling of what they wanted to do, um, and we just kind of exploited that a bit. As far as the rest of the comp goes, like again, Momo is just really strong here in Rakan. It's also great into Gwen, and then we've got the Scion man. Scion's just he's I think he's a better version of Mundo in my personal opinion. Like if you're talking about a champion that's going to scale into the late game really, really well, and then kind of in a sense infinitely scales when you consider Mundo's going to probably buy Heartsteel. Cyan could do the same thing, and yet he has his W as well to scale with HP, and has a great team fighting ultimate and a really, really strong Q ability that allows the team fight to either go in our favor heavily because he can knock off multiple members, or just push them off and reposition them into a way where they cannot step into the fight, depending on the champion, right? So I really like the comp we drafted, regardless if we won early, but we were able to do that, and I felt like a really good game. That's exactly what I wanted to see out of a game three. Not give them any opportunities to feel like they're gonna win. So and keep our heads on straight after a game two loss.
Yeah, I think you guys did that really well overall.
Yeah. Before we jump into this other one, Geoprow, what do you think about Mundo? Everybody like hates on Mundo around here, so we just think the champion's stupid. What's your opinion on the pick?
Um, I think it's really easy for Mundo to get into a place where it's really hard for a team to deal with him. So I'm kind of on the hate Mundo train. Um, I think you guys did a really good job of just keeping the game flowing in your direction the entire time and stopping Mundo from getting to the point where he's just this unkillable brick wall that also autos your 80 carry for 800 damage because he walks up with Heartsteel. Um, it seemed like a really good game. I was able to catch it live. Personally, for me, there's a world where I wonder whether, like, sometimes the way I think of it is if there's five of me playing for a team, where am I going to put the champions? And there's a chance I switch the Gwen and the Mundo for PB and J. Like assuming the top laner and the jungle are able to play both champions, I almost feel like Gwen is a better pick into Scion than Mundo is, and then Mundo and Gwen both have that same kind of inability to get these really guaranteed ganks off, but Mundo clears the jungle a little bit faster. Personally, and maybe this is a hot take, I would have preferred to have those champions switched.
I can see that.
Yeah, I can see
I
it
actually
too.
agree with that. Yeah.
I think J4 is still great in the Mundo, so that's like fine for me. But I do agree that like if you want to get the best of like the situation, I think Gwen is better into Scion than Gwen would be into J4, especially in the early
Yeah,
game. So
yeah, I agree. And especially for the J4's ability to like keep the pace of the game up, get into lanes, get things done. I think it's a really good pick into Gwen or Mundo.
yeah, but yeah, I think I could see that. I don't think their draft was like anything that they couldn't win with for sure, but it definitely was a situation where I feel like they might have pinched themselves into a situation where they need things to go right for them. And when I mean right, like the early game has to be for sure slowed, one, and then two, um, the win con of this Gwen Corki is just so like precise because it's really hard for Gwen to play the game in a situation where again you've got multiple things that can just lock her down, regardless of her, you can't touch me ability, right? So you don't want to see that if you're Gwen. So, but with that being said, yeah, we can jump here into the next game, which is Load the Cannons versus Ice Wall, and I'll let you lead us off. CLT, I need to grab water.
Yeah, Load the Cannons versus Ice Wall. Very interesting series to say the least. Load the Cannons had their full lineup here for game one, and they picked a really like big fight type of comp. We see the Pike coming out, which I'll get Geoprow's opinion on the Pike here in just a sec. But Pike coming out really sped this game up. I think Icewall had a really kind of scale comp with Aurora mid lane, maybe to keep the pressure and the tempo like evened for how fast Cannons wanted to play. We seen this Aurora got a couple kills mid off of Rurika, which is actually like insane to say because I hold Rurika in very high regards. He's a very talented mid laner. Um, but no, this Gwen started to get ahead, and then the bot lane just ran over the Smolder Poppy. Smolder, if anybody hasn't had a chance to look at the stats that we've got out there, Smolder is 0 and 8 in this league. I know it's been played, I think, 2 or 3 times mid, but mainly in the bot lane. But these teams know how to attack something that plays as slow as Smolder, and Load the Cannons just didn't, never ever got behind and never looked back on this one. But kind of that I hinted at, Geoprow. I would assume you'd be a Pike player as much fighting as you like to have. What's your thoughts on this champion?
I really like Pike into Smolder. I have boomer hands, so I can't really play Pike. Um, I have played Pike in the past as a duo with old Swain before Swain got changed. Um, but in current patch, I just have a mental block against or playing as Pike. But I do think it's a really strong pick into Smolder. I think Smolder's in a really bad place now too. Um, it really just feels like the stacks don't give you anything anymore. So I think you're just sacrificing early game for no real benefit later on. Um, I got to play a couple games with Load the Cannons as a sub in week
Oh,
one, I
that's correct.
believe.
Yeah.
Um, I think they play pretty similarly to how Coinflip plays, how my team plays, and I think they do a really good job early game getting a lead. So I really just like their comp a lot better for trying to like push the advantage in this game.
Yeah, I definitely see that. One thing I will point out that was kind of risky here, but there's two options here for Ice Wall, and even both could have been fine to be honest. And that was the fact that they could have easily taken a Mundo here or a Galio and just kind of ran over the map because, sure, if the bot lane still kind of goes the way it's going, obviously the AD threats are going to be high, but the top side of the map is just straight up pure AP. So, um, and I know Gwen like shreds tanks technically speaking, but I've seen this Gwen Galio matchup a couple times this split, and Galio's fine. Like he's he can be solo kill in certain circumstances. So I don't think it's a bad option here. So I'm surprised they didn't really go for one of those. I don't know how the draft exactly went, but I'm just kind of that's the only thing to note for me as far as their picks here.
Yeah. Note this game. There was zero presence on Victor. Like, wasn't picked or wasn't banned at all. So this was a very rare game this week to not see Victor.
Yeah, and that could be both mid laners maybe don't even play it, so it's like why even ban it? You know what I mean? I don't know if what Rika's current pool is on that. Um, but yeah, that's certainly a possibility of why that you didn't see that come out. But I do like what both comps kind of still at the end of the day did draft. They had opportunities, except for the Smolder. You just got to take the Smolder out. I just um we talked about this yesterday, CLT, and I'm gonna use the term. This is my opinion. The Geoprow, kind of said it without saying it. Smolder's just a shit champion right now, man. He's not good, and there's just not enough that he offers. Not just the early game, but even in the mid game, in my opinion, he's just not strong enough. And people like to talk about, well, he's a late game champion. He's not. He's a mid game champion. He used to be late game, but the changes to how his stacks work and everything, he's not good like in late game like he used to be. Low range as well. I don't know, man. I just think if we continue to pick Smolder, we're trolling in this league. So please stop picking the champion. And I'm saying that just straight up. Just let me never see it again.
Yeah, I'll second that with the caveat that if you're playing against me, please pick Smolder. Please. It's so simple. You do nothing early game, you do nothing mid game, you do nothing late game. Like, you can say Smolder's a mid game champion. I guess that's technically when he's the strongest, but he's just never strong. So who cares? Um, I want to give props. Both teams had a really good team comp, but Load the Cannons did a great job just hard winning this early game. I think like 14 minutes into the game, they were up almost 10,000 gold, which is ridiculous. They just had a really strong game this game.
Yeah, for sure. And that's even with I think Ice Wall drafting still. If you take out the Smolder, other than that, I think it's drafted still well. Like even if I do think those two champions I mentioned, the Galio and the Mundo, would be good. I mean, like Poppy is pretty good into Ari. She's pretty good into Pike. She's pretty good into even a Moon Moon Gwen. Like Poppy's good here. Aurora is fine in this spot. She's actually not bad in the matchup against Ari, and great gameplay. Our game, team fighting ulti. And then Zach doesn't mind any of this either. So I mean, like, the comp wasn't bad. That is factual. The comp just wasn't bad. If you take the smolder out, everything else is good. So I like what I see from Icewall here. Maybe just clean up a little bit of that execution and just maybe stay away from the smolder from moving forward. Uh, but yeah, great game from Load the Cannons overall. So, but we can go ahead and jump into to game two here, CLT.
Yeah, game two was kind of a continuation of game one. Note that Load the Cannon's top laner had to leave. So Rurika, after getting solo killed twice in the first game, they just kicked him to top lane, and Soup came in and played. But yeah, they didn't stop, as this Callista was kind of picked early in the draft, and then they flexed to top lane when Icewall showed Garen, and this Garen got bullied around a lot. And Soup on this Cassio, especially in this Katarina, Samira, Viego. Uh, Cassio's not too worried about that, especially post Roa. So, Load the Cannons, while they had a little more scaling in their comp this game, the tempo was still pretty fast. And once they got ahead, again, big gold lead at like the 15, 18-minute mark, and just never looked back. They won a big team fight, I think, after catching out either Viego or Garen, and just ended this game swiftly at the 20-minute mark.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong on this. I could have sworn that Katarina is actually pretty good in the Cassiopeia. Is that wrong? I remember.
So, yeah, yes and no. So like Katarina, it's kind of a la the Yone Renekton matchup, to where like Katarina can do damage and can threaten kill pressure early, but Cassios can play so safe now and scale up so much better that once Katarina comes in while she's blowing her ult, Cassio just puts the grounded field down. Somebody else stops Katarina ult, and then she just gets blown up because she can't move.
Mm,
So they're lane to lane. Yeah, Katarina's not terrible in the Cassio, but I think thematically, as you look at it as team comp wise, just Cat can't provide enough to match what Cassio can provide. So
yeah.
to me, it's a little bit of a counter, but yeah, Cat can put some pressure in lane.
I do think the unfortunate situation here where you end up having the swap and having Rurika go top, that's why you end up seeing something like the Callista here. I'm sure their top laner doesn't play it. And so that just kind of feels bad here for this Garen, because Garen would have had great time into probably a lot of the champions that would have been played top lane here. So it really feels bad kind of moment on that one. Um, but yeah, ballsy pick nonetheless, because there's still potential for it not to work out, right? Um, with some gank pressure from this Viego, I think Calista just doesn't play the game. So there was certainly some potential there.
Yeah, I'm surprised I didn't see this Viego go top a little more. I mean, Bio had a couple of really decent trades where he forced out Rurika's flash, but like once Callista gets some levels and some attack speed, it there's not much she could do.
Yeah. What did your Geoprow? We were seeing some kind of spicy picks here. How you feeling about some Katarina and some Calista top?
I think I generally agree with the idea of Katarina being slightly stronger than Cassiopeia in lane, and then if you don't get that advantage, you kind of just don't have as much money as Cassiopeia, and Cassiopeia just has a really easy time doing more than you later on. Katarina didn't get any really easy early game roams. She wasn't able to come bottom multiple times and get free double kills, which feels like almost mandatory on Katarina in this meta. Maybe that's my bot lane perspective coming through, but that's just kind of how I feel about that champion. And then Callista, especially with this lethality build, I'm a really big fan of. I've been for probably 5 years at this point. I'm a really big ARAM player, and lethality Callista has been very strong in ARAM for a long time. And my personal meme is that whatever the ARAM meta is gets adopted by Summoner's Rift like 6 months to a year later. And Lethality Callista was only played for about a patch like a year ago, but I still think it's very strong, so I'm glad it got played here, and I wouldn't be surprised if Load the Cannons pulled this out again in the future.
Yeah, and something they pull out mid instead. I think Kalista can have some okay mid matchups too. Maybe not stuff like seeing Victor, but like maybe I don't know, whatever there's out there. There's something I'm sure it can have success into. And maybe
Could be a
that's
decent could be a decent answer to Silas.
yeah, that's true. Kite him out and whatnot makes it really hard for him to get on top of her. Yeah, so I'm definitely curious if he'll ever do it again. Maybe this is a one-time thing, but it's Eureka, so he likes to send something for the first time for fun. It seems like he might just do that in a series before the playoffs. Because I assume once the playoffs start, he might have something built up, but like he's definitely gonna play more centered. You want to win. Not saying don't pull out spicy stuff, but maybe you save the spicy stuff for a pivotal game or something. As funny as that sounds, a lot of players would not want to, but I think a spicy pick is sometimes better in your game 3 scenario. Like you live and die by the sword by that point, or a game 5 or something, or like an elimination. You're down 2-1 in a 5 game series, and you just kind of like say, screw it, we have to win. Let's try to send something that they're just not going to expect. So,
Yeah, it's all
um,
about having the confidence, and
yep,
having the confidence to play Lethality Callista in one of these games is props to him.
yeah. But I think that's pretty much it from this series. Swift victory by Low the Cannons, continuing to show why they're definitely not a team to be forgotten. Don't trifle with them; they're legit. So, with that said, let's jump into Sad Jellyfish versus Backdoor Bandits. I should mention this; it's not going to show up on Battlefy, unfortunately, because no one put it in. But this is technically a 2-1. So Backdoor Bandits got to late game 1. That was like 33 minutes in, and they still hadn't had their mid laner, so they had to forfeit game 1. Um, so with that being said, um, it technically is a 2-1, even though it kind of is a 2-0. But we'll talk about the series nonetheless. And so CLT, do you want to lead us off with this first game?
Yeah, this series overall was really entertaining. I was super happy to see the series live and without subs because I think Mage Hand was ready to sub in while the mid laner for Backdoor was having a lot of internet issues, but he got it figured out and um I didn't know at the time that they forfeited game 1. So I did not know Backdoor Bandits ended up like having a lot more pressure to perform because they're one loss and then they lose the series. But overall, I thought this draft went really well. They saved the Mordekaiser till the end, and when Dippy showed this Malphite, Mordekaiser I thought was a really good pick. Though Dippy did get a solo kill early. He got an early level 6 and caught the Mordekaiser by surprise when he was trying to back. So that was really clutch, and I actually thought this game there for a bit was going in Sad Jellyfish's favor. But Backdoor Bandits, they had the tools to just respond to any fight that Sad Jellyfish was throwing at them, and it was a very impressive performance. SCYX on this Rek'Sai, I thought this was not a great game to pick Rek'Sai or even try to play it, but he made life a living hell for the backline, specifically Salt and Shanti. And then I thought the build coming out of Misfortune, instead of going like pure lethality, she went the crit, kind of pseudo on hit build, was really clutch because she wasn't as dependent on her ult as you've probably seen Misfortunes in the past, and she would just come in, clean up fights, and it was fun to watch. So
Yeah, I do think there's a lot of time an undervalue on certain champions with certain builds. And MF is one of them. I think the champion could certainly auto you to death. So I don't see why not just build something different, right? It's kind of like we were talking about Kaisa earlier. I know Kaisa is really favoring more of an on-hit AP build right now, but like if you have a game for it and it's a good opportunity to pull it out, I think you can still send a more of a critty 80 damage build on that champion. So same thing for MF. We've seen it before. There are some champions that really are just like, okay, you gotta go this build. I mean, Ezreal's kind of one of those champions. He doesn't have as many options like he used to. Um, but yeah, I do agree with you. I think a more of a critty MF build is certainly not bad. What's your opinion on the build, Geoprow?
Um, I think MF is really good with whatever build she wants as long as she's pulling her weight. If she's getting CS, getting kills, crit or lethality is gonna end you up in a pretty good spot either way. I think the builds are pretty evenly balanced to the point where like it doesn't super matter whether you go one or the other. Um, I guess that's my opinion on the MF build. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fair breakdown, and I definitely agree. There's just some champions that have a lot of versatility, and I think that's what's wonderful about this game is you get to have that, and then you're not forced to just be like I have to build the same things every game, and I would even go as far to say like almost every champion has that. I don't think any champion is just forced to do the same build. Maybe there's the same core items, but there's always room for a different third item or a different fourth item in these builds. So that's what makes the game great. But sometimes players are definitely seem like they don't want to do it, right? They don't want to change it up. Maybe they feel like, it's not going to work. This is not the standard. Um, but that's what testing it in a solo queue game or in a normal game or flex game with the boys will allow you to kind of get that information. So maybe this is something that MF had been trying and was like, this is still good. Let me pull this out. But yeah, with that being said, what's kind of the final game breaking moment of this game here?
There was a big team fight in the upper part of Sad Jellyfish's jungle where it just trying to find out who pulled the trigger. But they caught out Miss Fortune and procced her GA and then dumped all the cooldowns into her to get her shut down, but then they had nothing left over to take care of this Mordekaiser. Rek'Sai got a really good kind of flank into the back line and did a great job taking out Shanti, and then after that, it just became kind of the Mordekaiser cleanup show for the most part, along with Rek'Sai as well. So yeah, if you look at about the 39-minute mark, you'll see the start of it. It looked like a really good fight for Sad Jellyfish, but once SCYX got into Shanti's face, just basically one-shot him. Did the combo, ulted, and then came out of the combo with the Q off cooldown again, and got the Shanti. And then I think Mordekaiser was taking care of the Victor on the side lane with the ult. So yeah, it was a really kind of explosive ending, but Sad Jellyfish got behind in the dragons and then started to tie it up. And there was some early plating gold that went over to the bot lane, the backdoor bandits, and they played really well. But all in all, yeah, it went the way backdoor bandits on this game two technically.
Yeah, I mean, I watched back the fight. It seemed like the biggest thing was just in the start of that fight, Braum was so low and pretty much died. Like he did get to pull off all of his abilities there, right? He used his ulti, everything came out. But I can imagine a world where if Braum's still alive in that fight, able to help Caitlyn survive that secondary Rek'Sai engage by dropping an auto or a Q on for passive. Like those types of things could have really changed the complexity of that fight. So. Pretty unfortunate. They did try what they could. I saw in that fight, but yeah, it looks like it was a really, really, really great game. I wish I would have caught. This is one of those series I just haven't been able to get to. But yeah, it looks pretty nice. So, did you see any of this game yourself, GeoPro?
I wasn't able to catch this game live, but big props to Backdoor Bandits for being able to be one of the few teams to take a game off of Victor. It's really hard once you get 30, 35, 40 minutes into a game to team fight against that champion, and they did a great job doing it. Um, and then again, yeah, just echoing, SCYX has a really, really clean Rek'Sai. I remember when I was subbing for Load the Cannons, I played against Backdoor Bandits, and the Rek'Sai was a huge problem for me in particular, being a little bit uh, out of, not in synergy with the rest of Load the Cannons. SCYX is an amazing Rek'Sai, and I think the team as a whole played really well this game.
Yeah, it's a good breakdown, and they are certainly one of those teams that you have to watch out for. This backdoor bandits, they're 3-0, and this was just another series they were able to win. Um, I'm not gonna say by any means handily, but like well played. And so if they played this again, or maybe if there's it's funny as it sounds, maybe if the 30 minutes doesn't happen and they actually just get into game one, maybe we have a different series on our hands even. Sometimes you're that team waiting to play. You're 1-1. You're trying to get this you know, you're trying to start to get some momentum going, and you're going against a team that's already undefeated, been playing really well so far this split, and then you just end up waiting 30 minutes. Like that can affect mental, right? So there's a chance that could have messed with Sad Jellyfish a little bit. Um, but yeah, I mean, really, really good game one from Backdoor Bandits here. How about game two here, CLT? What was kind of your breakdown of game two?
Game two had as much action, but there was so much pressure coming out of the Backdoor Bandits comp that it felt like they kept the pace of this game up pretty fast, and they knew that they were on a timer because you had Dippy on Gwen and you had this Vagar in the mid lane. So I honestly thought the Vagar was a really good pick into what Backdoor Bandits was showing, but they just did not let this Vagar get off the ground and put this. They didn't let the Sad Jellyfish team put Vagar into any positions to really like dictate a fight. It seemed like when Sad Jellyfish had a really good outcome for a fight, there was either Garen or Sivir pushing a lane in on the side lane, and Sad Jellyfish had to respond to it. I mean, this was a really good macro treat to watch out of Backdoor Bandits, as it was a pretty low kill game. I mean, you had 17 kills in a 32-minute game.
Yeah.
But it just felt like if somebody got caught for Backdoor Bandits, the other 4 guys or 3 guys were getting something somewhere else on the other side of the map, and it just said Jellyfish couldn't stabilize this game. They didn't have the wave clear in their comp to really like stabilize it and let this Vagar get to like this late game status. That death cap that Vagar has was right after he died the very last time, so you couldn't even feel this death cap
That's
come out in this
unfortunate.
game.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was.
I should also
Oh,
note CLT. Vector Bennett's we're playing into a sub here in the bot lane. Barty subbed in for
that's
Marcuti.
correct. Yeah.
And obviously, this is nothing to take away Vector Bennett's victory here. This is just a note, and I would love to have seen both teams at full capacity. Um, unless Spectre Bandits had a sub too, which I don't know if they did. I recognize
I
most of the names, but
don't believe they did. No.
okay. Um, so something to know for Backdoor Bandits so far, they split 2 of the series they've played. They've actually played against a sub in the support role. So I hopefully, what's funny? They might even get that against us. They might just get a sub in support role again. If they ever get to play against a team full roster, I'm just curious what it would look like then, because that also is a big deal, especially all roles matter, and so support's just as strong, if not maybe one of the more stronger roles when it comes to team team macro play and vision control, right? And so if you don't have your normal support, I mean that can impact a lot of things in the way you play around the map. So that's just something to note. Other than that, yeah, I mean it looks like a pretty clean, quiet game from both teams, and then a spicy Garen pick in the mid lane. Well,
Yeah, I know. I heard in chat that Empress plays this Garen quite a bit in the mid lane, and I thought Vagar was a really solid answer to it. It's just this Garen would end up pushing in and then making some tempo around the map, to where like Vagar would just soak up waves. He would get quite a bit of AP, but they played away from this Vagar quite a bit. So it was a nice treat to watch a team understand what the other team wants to do and be able to macro around it and tempo around it quite heavily. It was a really, if you like macro and just very strategic games, this game two is definitely your treat to watch.
yeah, and the Vi pick also, I want to point out, I've talked heavily about where Vi is picked in so many bad situations. This was a great situation for Vi. Vi loves
Great.
going into this Ezreal, into this Wukong, into this even honestly, it's not even that bad in the Gwen, to be honest. I understand that Gwen can stop the alt if like you have the you know you can't touch me ability, but when that's down, like CC locking the Gwen is great, and so I don't really see an issue with Vi here. I think Vi's a great pick here. The only concern would be the Zillion at that point. to kind of like negate your whole entire play because you're like, oh, we're trying to blow up this one target with Vi ult. But you had other answers around that, right? You had the Rumble drop the equalizer. You had Sivir, Garen, and the Karma to just kind of run at them after the initial play and just kind of get in there with the Vi with Sivir ult and the speed up shields from Karma. So the comp was really well set up here, I think, by honestly both teams. But yeah, I mean macro play is a big part of this game, and sometimes in these games where you know both comps are pretty good, you just play around your macro and you win the game. Not something Coinflip would do. Coinflip doesn't play macro; they just like to fight. So, right, Geoprow?
I mean, I would argue that we do a little bit of macro, but we do like to fight while we macro.
Yes.
What would you give that? Like an 80-20?
I don't know, 50-50.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this guy's now definitely lying. Yeah, he might be they might be the team of coin flipping, but I don't think they like macro more than fighting. Get out of here.
I mean, I really love fighting, but I am the support, so if anyone's gonna like macro, it's gonna be me putting the wards down.
Yes, this is fair. This is fair. But yeah, I mean, so was there any opinions from either of you guys on this game too? We kind of already really heard CLTs, but was there any other thing you guys wanted to mention?
I think my personal opinion, I'm kind of gonna disagree with CLT here on the Garen versus Vigar. Like Vigar does get to scale a little bit, but Garen feels like a really good option into Vigard for me, where like you can avoid most of the stacking. Like it's kind of hard for Vigar to stack onto Garen without just getting sprinted at, Q'd, and E'd for a bunch of your health in lane. So you're kind of just giving up a lot of pressure in lane to a melee that shouldn't really have a lot of ability to exist against most other champions. Um, I think Garen gives a pretty free lane against Vigar mid. So I'm kind of uh, a fan of it. You mentioned that Empress plays it once in a while at least, and it seems like Vigar would be one of the choices where like if I was a Garen mid player, I would play Garen into Vigar,
Hmm.
and then just as a whole for the game, I think I think Backdoor Bandits did a really good job of just like getting a gold lead despite being relatively even in kills, and then just slowly rolling it over with really clean macro.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
pretty
I can.
solid breakdown on that.
Yeah, I can agree for the most part. I think it's one of those rare matchups where like both champions are actually pretty happy with their side of the matchup. It's just what the tempo of the game brings. Which yeah, in
Yeah,
this
that
case,
that that
Aaron.
feels right to me too. Where like a Vigar that gets to just get a couple extra free stacks on Garen relative to like a ranged matchup, and then their team's winning, probably just wins the game. Whereas on the opposite side, a Garen where the Garen team gets a little bit of a lead, doesn't even care if the Vigar is slowly getting items. Vigar's not going to do anything to Garen. Garen's going to ult the 80 carry and kill it in one shot.
Yep.
Welcome to Garen gameplay.
Yeah. There was one time where I think Dippy came up top and then Garen postured towards her and then turned back and it gave Dippy this false sense of hope and then next thing you know, you just seen Demacia rain from the heavens and Dippy's looking at a gray screen. It was I hate Garen.
Fair enough.
Demacia is very scary.
That part of Demacia injustice I'm running from. Yeah, screw that.
Demacia. Well, we
Yeah.
can we can dive in here into the next series here. We had Cal Poly versus T1 Tempest, and this was the first series here to cover from Group C, who played a lot of their games. Always seem to play them late. Like they're the last. They're the last the group to finish every week. It seems like. So I'm not trying to say nothing against Group C here, but guys, can you get your homework in a little sooner? Thanks.
Uh,
Yeah. But yeah, so we had these two teams playing. It was a Saturday match or was it Sunday? I forget. Saturday, right?
This was no, this was Sunday.
No,
This was
no,
the
no,
first game.
no. It was Saturday. It was Saturday. Yeah, it was. Cause I
You're
did.
right, you're
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah.
This was Saturday. This was the first one of your like four series castathon.
Yes, it was fun.
So I'll let you defer to this one because I did not catch any part of this series, unfortunately.
Yeah. So this one I did do live. For everyone to know, it was not a rerun. It was a fun series to cast if you're looking for just an absolutely slobber knocker. Like it was just uh, more or less Cal Poly running over the map and just kind of run over T1 Tempest for the most part. Um, Game one here, you ended up with a draft that I think favors. I don't know if it favors either team extremely hard necessarily, but I will say it's like the Silas here into Oriana, like that's a really nice angle for Silas. And then on top of the fact, there's also a Gnar, a Maokai, and even a Braum. Like he loves every alt in this game, and that's excluding the Jinx, which I still think he doesn't mind. So the Silas was just perfect here. You had Ashe plus Thresh, and something to note out about like Ashe into Jinx. Like Ashe is not bad into Jinx early, and you obviously have great pick potential with the arrow. Jinx did take the cleanse, but it just didn't seem to matter, especially here in lane, because you had to dodge Thresh hooks as well. Um, and then running at the comp, you did the J4 and the Aatrox, which I don't know if Aatrox is specifically great in Gnar. I think they picked Gnar as like an R5, if I remember correctly. And then Maokai J4, it kind of goes both ways. Like I think J4 is really, really strong on Maokai in terms of like 1v1ing, but Maokai has a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Peel. So he can make it where if J4 goes in, he just clicks R, right? And stops people from getting in while they kill J4 for free. So both comps were not bad, but yeah, dude, this Silas was disgusting. He had like it. You know the famous clip of I think it was Captain Flowers, and he's like, "Faker Shockwave will find them all," right? It wasn't the Oriana Shockwave that was finding them all. It was Gojo on Silas's Shockwave finding them all. He had like I think at least three-man, four-man Oriolts this game. It was absolutely disgusting. Every time a fight seemed like maybe it was going T1 Tempest's way, nah, it immediately just said, "Nope, we're gonna blow you up now." So um, that's kind of the take of how the game went, and it just ended up being a pretty hard stomp. Um, as we got into like I think the middle of the game here, if I remember correctly. Yeah, by 15 minutes it was 5k gold lead. So and then it just kept going up and up from there. And they were pretty quick games. I know the game one was around like I believe 24 minutes. So it's pretty fast paced. The only thing to note here, T1 Tempest didn't have their top laner in. Hex5 filled in for Lionel Johnson. So I would again, subs always are an unfortunate circumstance. You got to win with who you have, right? It's just what it is. But again, I would have loved to have seen Lionel Johnson here because I know he's a very, very good player. He used to play for Scorch, and not that Hexify didn't play well, but I'm curious what it would look like with him in. So, uh, did you catch any of this game, Geoprow, on Saturday? I know it was early.
I wasn't able to catch this game live, but I saw bits and pieces of it just skipping through a little while ago. Um, I really favor the draft of Cal Poly in game one. I think Gnar has a good shot of kind of matching Aatrox, beating Aatrox in lane maybe even, but Gnar just has this really easy to play around condition of like, if you're Mega Gnar, you can just back off as a team, and as long as you're positioning right, it's really hard for the other team to make a mistake against it. Um, so I really like having the Ashe for the free picks. I like the Silas into the good ultimates that the other team has. Um, T1 Tempest has a really good kind of sit back and let the other team make mistakes comp. Like you have an Ori ball for if everybody groups up, you have a Maokai to stop everyone from going in. If your Gnar is mega, you can have these really nice team plates, and you have a Jinx that can capitalize on one kill and then just snowball in a whole fight. But as long as you are proactive on the Cal Poly side, it feels like a really easy team comp to just slaughter the other team with. So I think they did a really good job in draft and then collecting on their win conditions.
Yeah, and I mean, it definitely, like I said, definitely was a slaughter. Like the game got out of hand so quick. It seemed like it was okay, and all of a sudden, boom, it blew up. Um, I think the game was around like finished around like 12 or 13k by the end. So, um, it
T1 Tempest also had a really early shot at making a good roam down bot lane with their mid and jungle, trying to four-man it, but just small little issues with their micro prevented that play from working out, and that kind of snowballed things really hard for them.
yeah, definitely. And that's kind of how the game goes sometimes. I mean, when you get stomped in a game, like you can just kind of go, all right, well, we lost the game. Here's where we lost it, and everything else pretty much doesn't matter. It's kind of weird to say it like that, but that's just the reality, right? Like you were never really in the game in the first place at a certain point, so you just kind of go back to that one play. And I don't know if that specifically was the play. Obviously, I'm just noting like once you do that in these games, it's just kind of tough. I'm always torn. Like, would I rather just get blown out in a game and then just move on, or would I rather have a game where we play really hard, we lose barely, and we can have like a good thought process of saying, hey, we can still beat this team, right? So we've obviously talked about those games that were the opposite today. So what is your kind of feeling on a game like this when you're just getting absolutely like annihilated in game one?
I think for me personally, it's again, I'm gonna kind of repeat this from previously. You just gotta try and make plays. If you're already in a position where you're losing the game, you're gonna either make a miracle happen or harden. And a lot of the times it's just going to be hard losing the game, but every once in a while you get the miracle to happen by just playing like a psychopath, sitting in bushes where they don't expect you, sending five people when they should only have three. Like, you just have to start playing dumb and hope that you're dumb enough that it works, I think, once you're in a position where it's not a winnable game otherwise.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair and good breakdown. Um, well, yeah, let's. I guess we'll hop in here into game two, and I know CLT wasn't able to catch much of this, so I'll just continue to lead this one off. Um, things to note for me again. I I remember mentioning this, and I feel like I said this. I was like, get this guy off Thrush. That's what I said. Exactly what I said. OG Sloppy Poppy's Thrush was disgusting game one, and remember talking with Backdoor Bandit's 80 carry a bit, kind of commenting in the comments during the Twitch. I was like, stream. I was like, I agree with saying like, if you just don't walk in the hooks or whatever, sure. But I think the Thrush was finding plays all of game one, and I feel like game two was even more of that. So that's one thing I really, really wanted to see changed, and they did not change that in draft. Um, they did make some smart moves, but I also don't think Vi is good here. I keep talking about this Vi too. I'm never gonna stop like hammering it down, but I just don't understand the value of Vi right now. It almost feels like an arcane pick. Like you're literally seeing Caitlyn, Vi, and Victor like consistently, and it just feels like, oh well, they're an arcane guys. Let's keep picking these champions. Now at least Victor got like strong, but I don't get the Vi, and Caitlyn's in the middle for me. So I don't know. Do you have any opinion on like this Vi thing that I keep talking about? I don't know if you watched the show at all previously to this week, but um, you're part of it now. But do you have any opinion on Vi?
I really like Vi as a champion, um, but again, I think Vi kind of struggles to have items that work for her. All of the items that Vi really likes when you're jungling are really expensive, so you kind of need to get a lead early and maintain a lead. Vi does a really good job getting around the map, trying to get early kills, and ganking. And then you're kind of in this spot where if you're ahead, you get an early item. Maybe you can snowball the whole game and just win it for free. But otherwise, the game can get really hard. And if you don't have some good follow up, like if you have a Galio on your team, that's great. If you don't have a Galio, you're kind of just solo primary engaging, and your damage is a little bit lower than you want it to be, and your tankiness is a little bit lower than you want it to be. It just feels kind of awkward in a lot of spots.
Yeah, I mean that's a good breakdown of like the items mattering a bit. I still think she's always going to be a champion, even if the items were good for her, which is just generally better around like if you're red side an R4, if you're blue side B4 B4 B5. I don't really think she's a good like early on jungle pick. It reveals a lot of what you want to do as the Vi, and it also can put you in situations where they could just build around it better. So you want to see something that's like, okay, this is a really good Vi angle. It's good into this. It's good into this. Let's play it, right? Here, like you're saying, well, it's good into Ashe. Sure, I mean Vi would be good into any carry that can't freaking dash, you know. But sometimes the value of the Vi is also to be picked into dashing champions, um, and that's why she's super strong into stuff like Ari, super strong into stuff like the Zeri, right? It locks those champions down and makes it so they cannot play the game, and then you just draft the rest of the comp around that at that point, right? But still, I do think Vi is usually better later in the draft, personally. So, something to note: this Thresh, man, I already brought it up a bit, but he also started the game with a triple kill. I don't know if you caught that, but yeah, that's kind of ridiculous. It was the like first 3 minutes or so. He got a There was a 2v3 play, and he got a kill on all the jungle and the Jinx and the Braum. It was kind of ridiculous. But support's been popping off this split a little bit when it comes to making some little highlight clip plays where they probably shouldn't be getting all these kills, but they are.
This-
Yeah, I think supports are in a really strong spot this split just based off AD carries being a little bit weaker than they have been previously. Like when you think back, supports have always been this role that's supposed to be like you're strong early so that your AD carry, your marksman, whatever champion you put with it can be strong later on. And supports are finally just like getting a bunch of kills that they probably shouldn't get, but they have the power to get now. Um, Huge props to Sloppy Poppy for just having an insane game again on Thresh, 2 in a row. Uh, but real quick, back on the Vi. I think Vi is a really good support champion as long as you're competent. I think in very certain scenarios, you could see a Vi take Blood and just choose the most dangerous carry in the game on the other team and just turn them into dust. Get them to 20% HP in every fight. Like it seems like a bad jungle pick because of the item problems, but I think Vi just has a potential spot in support sometimes. Um, so
All
be
right,
prepared for a Vi in the future, I guess is what I'm saying.
Geoprow is pulling it out, guys. It's freaking.
I,
I feel at this point we've been talking together a little bit today. I feel like I'm inclined to say this. This monkey support is what I'm gonna say now. It's just gonna
Yeah,
pull
totally
everything out.
reasonable.
No, but I like it. I like the cooking, and it definitely, like we talked about earlier, the spicy picks can really throw draft off. So
For
um,
sure, yeah.
I do think they're better in situations where one of two things we talked about a little bit. One, you're might lose a series, might as well just send it. Or two, if you're in a game one in playoffs, I think it'd be a great example because you want to get an edge, right? That's a really good way to get an edge. Everyone's doing all this prepping, and then all of a sudden, game one, here comes the, you know, I don't know, uh, Shackle mid lane. It's obviously probably trash. I'm just saying, like, something random like that, and everyone's like, wait, this is not going to be good. We're going to do shit on it. And then the dude pops off, gets like goes 10-0 on the pick or something. So,
Yeah, I think on the topic of spicy picks, a lot of the power that spicy picks give you is that your opponents don't understand the matchup a lot of the time. So if you have enough games on it that you understand your win conditions compared to theirs, especially if they're a little bit weirder than normal, or if your damage numbers are a little different than what they expect, you can get a lot of advantage just off of people not respecting what they don't understand. But the risk of spicy picks is there's that 1% chance someone played a solo queue game against that Shaco mid, and they know that prior to level 4 or whatever, Shaco mid has a really tough time and you can just win the entire game. Uh, so there's like a big double-edged sword there that you're just kind of gambling that they don't understand a lot of the time.
yeah, 100%. Well, with that being said, I will leave this series as is, and Cal Poly, congratulations to them. Like I already said, they put a lot of work in, and it was not a close series in my opinion. So, looking forward to seeing what else they're gonna be able to pull out and play in these future future series here. But yeah, so we'll move into Instant CK and Dyslexic Defenders, which I know that was an earlier. I feel like that was played much earlier in the week, if I remember correctly. But yeah, so CLT, do you want to lead us off with that one?
Yeah, while I didn't catch like much of the series, I did catch a little bit that sorry, here game one. Um that Instinct CK definitely like picked some interesting stuff. I know they picked Poppy Skarner early in the draft, and so that kind of led me to believe that Poppy was going to go bot side, but they ended up flexing it top, and Arctic has had I think two really, really standout weeks. Last week, I know he played so well on the Ornn. I believe you casted that game,
Yes.
where he went just absolutely popped off on back-to-back Ornn games, and it seemed like here he played really, really well. But then uh, the two carries of Good Boy and Eclipse, uh, the numbers that they put up this game was absolute insane. I mean, 30% of the team's damage to 24% is quite a bit, and they played it really, really well. They ended up giving Victor another rare loss here on the bot lane for Instinct CK, who kind of just ran this game over once they got ahead. So Caitlyn gets another loss as well. I know my team played Caitlyn, and even when we look back at it, when I talked to Diablo Fox, he's just like, Caitlyn, it looks good on paper, but then the results in game just are really suspect. It's like you got to find the perfect window. Caitlyn's like the Vi of the bot lane. It's like it looks good on paper, but it just ends up not being that great here. I'm not sure if Geoprow wants to chime in on his thoughts on Caitlyn, but yeah, it's just not finding success in this league this split.
Yeah, I think Caitlyn has a really big problem with being very feast or famine. A Caitlyn with a really synergistic support can push you under tower, keep you there the entire game, and if you have good knowledge of where their jungler is, you can keep them pushed up, you can get their CS numbers a little bit lower than they should be. Maybe you're playing like a Lux or a Morgana lane, and you get a couple like binding into trap, just force them to back, get a free kill. It can be a really big bully, but the problem is there's a lot of champions nowadays that can just walk up to Caitlyn and fight back, and that used to not be the case. Um, Ashe Seraphine is this lane that we've seen come up a couple times this week even. Ashe has that really cool synergy with Seraphine E, where it goes straight to being a stun instead of a root because Ashe autos apply that slow. Um, it's a really good synergy. Caitlyn kind of can have trouble with that, but more importantly, the Maokai that got picked this game, again, has trouble where if you make that one little miscalculation and you're a little bit off the amount of damage you need, you have to start retreating, and you cannot retreat from an Ashe. Uh, so this bot lane, despite Caitlyn supposedly being this like really strong lane bully, uh, I would predict, and as happened in game, Ashe Seraphine does a really good job into it.
Yeah. Also, I wanted to point out, so yeah, Avo is the jungler for Instant CK, and I knew I'd seen him before somewhere, and I just couldn't remember.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and that's yep, this is Don Don as well. He's trying to make me eat my words. So keep up the work, my friend. I really hope you're continuing to watch, and that's the most important thing is that you're watching. So that makes us happy, whether or not you like my takes or not. um, but yeah, I mean it's just a good game, and Good Boy is asserting himself as a very good mid laner here, constantly playing really well. Um, Obviously, anybody playing Ashe right now just seems like if they're given Ashe as just a strong champion, it's not about always um, like getting to style, right? Like Kaisa, Vayne, um, Samira. These AD carries they get to have their moments where like you get to really see how strong an AD carry is in terms of his outplay potential. Those truly disgusting mechanics. Whereas Ashe, you don't get to see it as much. You do get to see sometimes the nice kiting, right? The attack move going on. But her skill expression, the biggest thing, and this is what I've noticed with these Ashe players, are two things. One, her Q, and two, The Ash arrows. Uh, you can throw the E in there too if you want for tracking things, but yeah, you give a good AD carry the ability to have these tools, and they're continuously able to shut down whether it's their own lane or just other champions on the map with these cross map arrows. It's been pivotal, and a lot of that I think has to do with just how strong uh are not how strong a lot of other AD carriers are with, and because a lot of crit right now it's not really broken, right? It's not as busted as it was like middle of the year, so that's why you're seeing these AD carries pop up, these Ash picks, these Jin picks, these um what am I leaving out? Sivir even, um utility AD carries. So maybe it doesn't make for as fun a gameplay, but I would lean away from saying that for me personally. So
Yeah, I would tend to agree with all that.
I know I kind of rant about a couple things there a bit, but it's just kind of how I do it sometimes. So I don't know what you guys were able to pick up and want to comment on, but um, yeah, it looks like CK just kind of took over the game, similar to the one we just watched with T1 Tempest and um, what was I can't even think right now, Cal Poly,
Yeah.
where it's just they are able to get this huge lead, and once they've acquired it, it's just pretty much GG. So
Yeah, they do a good job getting a lead early and then not giving up, not having consequences to the plays they make. Like you can see 20 minutes into the game, they're like 15 kills ahead. They're not really dying when they make these plays. And then another small thing on the Ashe that I didn't mention, Ashe a lot of the times forces the other AD carry to take cleanse all on their own. And then when you're playing Ashe, you can just Ashe arrow the mid laner. You can just Ashe arrow the jungler right before you take an objective. Ashe has such a good ability to just have a go button, and their AD carry has to sacrifice a summoner spell to not automatically lose lane to it a lot of the time. And you still have options out of lane, which was what makes Ashe another point that makes Ashe a really strong pick.
yeah. Wow, Arctic. Oh my goodness. I just came across this small little clip here watching this. He's chasing down Farash's Maokai, and there's a blast cone. It's around the 24-20 mark. And he eased in onto the Maokai, W's perfectly as he knows Maokai's going to hit the blast cone. It just says, nope, you're staying here, buddy, and you're mine. My goodness, man. Yeah, Arctic is making a name for himself, man. I gotta say. So, um, but yeah, I would not disagree about any of the stuff you said about Ash, especially with that cleanse. That's a big deal. So, um, kind of just a strong champion right now, and I think teams are going to continue to see that. I think she's like 10-3 at the moment. So, yeah,
Yeah, 10-3.
you guys want to look to pick her. But let's jump into game two here, and let's kind of figure out what happened here in game two, CLT.
Looks like a lot of the same. Instinct got the prio this time on the Victor, so the mid laners actually traded sides in the matchup here, and Victor popped off. Arctic looked like he had another great game. I did catch some of this, but not all. Um, but yeah, it's again the bot lane did very well. It seems like they did ban Seraphine, so Ashe had to find another support, which Nautilus works really well. Ashe just seems like she's the versatility in the ADC of like she can play with hook champs, she can play with enchanters, she can just kind of do it all, even better than some of the other crit based ADCs that need one or the other. But we do see a rare Ivern pick coming out, which I actually do like Ivern in this spot as he can shield quite a bit of damage coming out from the Dislucent Defender's comp. So that's refreshing to see. So
Yeah, I think it was the second game that we've seen for him this week, and he's won I
yeah,
think both of them. So yeah, the pick is it's definitely undervalued by some of these teams. I will say, um, it requires. So it's a very interesting pick. You might think of Ivern like, okay, this champion is actually uh really maybe easy to play, right? But that's actually far from the truth. For number one, I mean, though Daisy's not the hardest to control of these summoning abilities in the game. You have Daisy you have to control, right? You have how to use your bushes and your passive with the autos, and then clear. Like jungle clear is, I would say for the most part, pretty standard for most champions. But Ivern has a lot of different things he can do, and you have to like keep track of certain things that you would not normally have to keep track of with this champion, right? Because you have to make sure your timers are correct when you can come back to camps, which allows you to gank when you probably shouldn't even be ganking. So um, the champion is really, really unique and very strong if played correctly, and it's got a play style that it's I think in the actual micro of it, like it's not as difficult, but the macro of the champion is up there as one of the hardest to me as a jungler to have to play well at a high level.
Yeah, this Ivern, it feels like when it's picked in the good spots, it seems to do a lot more for a team comp than the team like playing into it can expect it to do. Like it's very rare that you see an Ivern actually played well, so when you're against one and you're trying to make a play in a solo lane and then redemption comes down or here comes Daisy trying to knock you up, it's not something you're really accounting for.
Yeah, and no one wants to get pregnant by a tree, so
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but I mean I think if you can play the Ivern's not a terrible answer in the Skarner either. I know we got onto that conversation a little bit earlier. Um, it's just Ivern's more comp dependent on what you build around him.
yeah, I think in terms of like having an ability that can stop Ivern, I'm not stop Ivern, stop Skarner. It's nice, right? Because you can just throw your little root at him when he's trying to come through a wall or trying to eat at your face, and like people, and I don't know if this is just like again players not understanding that the champion like Skarner is actually not the hardest to play around. It's just you need to have things to stop him, and that's the thing. He is pretty easy to stop if you have the right champions. Thresh is pretty good. The Ivern we just mentioned. You've got Maokai can technically cancel it if he hits it right. So there's a lot of abilities that can just make the Skarner not be able to do what it wants to do. But it
Yeah.
almost feels like the picks being picked now for the most part don't exist to do that. So um, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe Skarner will start to lose some playtime once people start being able to learn how to play against it. But until then, I think it's going to stay in priority.
Yeah, for sure.
Is there any take from you here, Geoprow, on this game too?
I don't have a really exciting take to make here. I think Victor got a really early lead off a really clutch Ash ult, which is just like exactly what I'm saying. You just throw Ash arrows mid all early game if you want, and eventually one could hit, and you just win the game automatically off a huge lead. So having a Victor get ahead early, really nice. Good Boy winning both sides of the Ari Victor matchup feels really good for them. Uh, Props to them for winning both sides of the same matchup. Um, and yeah, I agree. Ivern feels really good into a nice matchup, and
Ooh,
Skarner feels good if you just from the ease of execution of it. You're a really tanky guy. You do a lot of damage. You have good CC. Um, Instinct just did a really good job playing around it.
yeah. CLT, the 8.5 minute mark, by the way, that was the disgusting Ash arrow that he's talking about. It was really good. It,
Okay.
yeah, it was a mid dashing Ari he hit, so from across the map.
Yeah, it was a really early cast and really unlucky for Ari that Ari just happened to dash forward and there's an Ash ult just right in the
Yeah,
face.
you don't hear the comms, but Good Boy could have easily said, "I think Ari's gonna engage on me here. If you want to maybe look for an Ash arrow based on that," and then he goes, "Sure," and he launches it. Like, you don't know what the comms are, so that might have been a predicting Ash arrow for sure. Like, I know some of the Ash arrows just like kind of throw basically where they're standing, and then they generally it'll hit. I know I've talked to a lot of 80 carries, and that's kind of what they say. But sometimes you're like, well, this is Ari. We know what Ari wants to do. Has six, maybe wants to engage on Victor here, so. I'm generally curious and would love to know if that's what the comms were. But yeah,
Oh, yeah, I just seen it.
yeah, we'll get off of this Ash conversation because we have one more series to talk about. I know we're all probably feeling a bit tired here. I appreciate Gio probably staying around this long. It's hard for people, but we'll knock out this last series and we can finish up. But it is a big series here. It was the last of the week. and it was the Tom Kench Benchers versus Team Ghost, and I don't think anyone could have predicted the outcome that we ended up having.
I I uh I mean I could have seen the 2-0 going either way, but the numbers don't showcase like how dominant TK Benchers were. Um Especially like anybody who watches this knows I gotta throw this out there. After Pack in the top lane was played out of his mind this series on the Orin and game two on the Cassante as well. Into what I would consider like he played it into two like decent counter picks, and a really really talented top laner in Havoc as well. But just going into this game, we knew this was a marquee matchup for Group C, and this was the last series to be played this week, so we ended off with a banger. Looking at the draft here, I thought the draft was heavily in favor of TK Benchers this first game, and they did a really good job pinching Mage's champ pool. Even with the ban loss, they banned 3 mid laners, and you can even count 4 and 5 mid laners on the side of Team Ghost as well. So Mage was really limited what he could pick, and he ended up picking this Akali with Braum, Ornn, Lee Sin showing, and then Tang had a really good response with the Talia as well. And this draft from TK Benchers just got off the ground, got running, and there was nothing Team Ghost could do. They just didn't have the tools to do it. Caitlyn again gets another loss. Didn't dominate lane like you would expect her to do, but I think Varus is naturally a good response into Caitlyn. Correct me if I'm wrong, Geo there. But Lee Sin being able to reveal Akali after Pack had a couple of clutch W's where he would dodge the set ult. And yeah, Team TK Benchers fired off on all cylinders this game.
And this one was the closer of the two for sure.
Oh yeah, yeah.
In terms of play here, I think Ghost definitely had some opportunities. You know, the early on, Havoc was doing kind of what he wants on this set, having a lot of success. Geico and Ocean, like they weren't necessarily like popping off, but they weren't like losing hard bot or anything. Um, but I do think that Varus pick was really pivotal here, and we haven't really talked about the Varus at all, and we've had it picked in a couple games this week. I don't know if it was 2 or 3, but this would be a good opportunity to talk about it. Geoprow, you want to kind of lead into that?
Um, I don't really have any big opinions on Varus. I I I like Braum as a champion because every time I'm playing against a Braum, I'm annoyed. I think Braum's pretty strong. Um, I don't think Seraphine and Caitlyn have that much synergy other than that of just being like big poke mages, and you can see early on in this game. I got to watch both these games live. They're really fun. Um, Caitlyn and Seraphine had a pretty good CS lead. They were like 20 CS up early game. But Braum got some good roams off as like a side effect of that. Uh, Varus specifically, it's fine. It kind of cuts down tanks with the passive on W. But really, I think Havoc just played a really good game here, but kind of just made these small errors in a couple spots, and it kind of let Ornn just like do the things Ornn does. And once Ornn gets to a certain point, it gets really hard to play against it, and it seemed like it was just too much, especially once Ocean Soul came down.
Yeah, and that's a good point too. Ocean Soul is just it's kind of huge here if you're the side of TK Ventures. But yeah, I mean, crazy, just a crazy game. I these Orange players right now, like I don't even have words because like it almost doesn't make sense, but it does. If you're a Orange player in any way, you know the combos, you know how strong he can just actually kind of 1-0 someone is as a tank, and it's kind of just dumb. Like I don't understand why we're playing against you know a freaking assassin tank right now, but here we are, you know. But a lot of that has to do with how he's properly weaving everything in and utilizing his passive and his autos, and yeah, it's just disgusting.
Yeah, Orin players are absolute scary because it just seems like it's one of the few tanks that just doesn't give two shits about like a split pusher or a fighter matchup because in the early game he still does a boatload of damage. And then in the late game he has all these tools on top of the damage he already does. So
Yeah. I
it's
also
it's insane.
I would like to give a shout out to Changi here too. I think, and we'll get more into his next game, but he played a really good Lee Sin, and as a Lee Sin player, I always love to see it, and I respect it a lot. It's not something I like to pick a lot, and I've talked about that in previous splits. It's just the champion's weird. I think it's not a bad competitive pick, but like its requirements to win are super difficult to reach, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that we all know what Lee Sin's known for, right? He's like, hey, pre-11, this champion's pretty much just the most one of the most broken junglers in the game. After that, good luck winning the video game, right? So you want to have a lead, you want to be dominant. I generally like to pick Lee Sin in a situation where you definitely have some sort of scalers in your game, so that way he can just help them get through the early. But you also don't want to just like ignore the fact that Lee Sin's strong early, so you still want to have something that can pair with it early on. So it's just really weird how to play this champion, but he pulled it off. Played a really good game on it. I love it into a Mumu. I think it's really strong into a Mumu early. Um, so yeah, I think that was something also to note for me was he had himself an excellent game here on the Lee Sin.
Yeah, big props to Chengi. Chengi played really well on this Lee Sin the whole game. And I also think specifically it's a really good pick into Team Ghost, who really like to make these really aggressive plays bottom lane. They like to rely on Havoc in the top lane to just kind of roll over whatever the other top laner's doing. Picking something that can be aggressive early into the Amumu lets you kind of make plays, uh, even that out and that kind of play style difference that you might have with Team Ghost. And it worked out really well for them.
Yeah, I agree with that. And this is a different iteration of Team Ghost, but I've played Lee Sin into Team Ghost before, and actually the game went really well for me, and I think it did exactly what you talked about. But at the same time, like it is a team game, and so we ended up losing that game. It was really sad. It's far back for me now. It's like 2 splits ago, I think, maybe 3 splits. But but yeah, like it definitely seems like something they would struggle against a lot of times because you definitely want to be aggressive into this team and uh, punish them where they don't expect to be punished. Um, but again, Ghost is really good and don't like again. This is one of those situations we talked about earlier with your series, right? This is not even a knock at Ghost for losing this game here or this series. This is more of just how impressive the win here is by TK Ventures. Just like your win is very impressive. So I expect Ghost to continue to show their dominance in these series, and wouldn't be surprised if they finish 4-1 to end the split. So definitely looking forward to that. But we can jump into game two here, and the uh, last game of the week. So go ahead, CLT. I'll let you take that one away.
Yeah, game two kind of started just where game one left off. Just a really entertaining draft. Again, you had Afterpack. They let him pick his Cassante early, and then Havoc tried to counter pick it with the Darius, and he got a couple of from decent like 2v1s and a kill or two off. But TK Benchers drafted really well to have a lot of resources thrown at Afterpack, and then once he got off the ground, very similar to game one, it was impossible to stop this Cassante. He had one play in the top lane where I think Chingy was coming around the upper tri brush, and Afterpack's like, "Don't worry about coming to me. I'm gonna flash and ult." I think it was either Ocean or Mr. Scuttle's Crab to them, and then they just ended up turning that from a 1v2 to then a 2v1 because of the way Cassante ult takes him over terrain. And again, he popped off. He did really well. He carried a lot of team fights. I believe the last team fight he ended up ending himself, got a double kill on the back line, and TK just they were impressive to say the least in this marquee matchup. So
Yeah, and this was that game we were talking about. Like compared to game one, like this was a really dominant victory. I wouldn't go as far to say just a complete stomp, but it was very well controlled by TK. They had I think at one point had 10k gold lead. So um, like Ghost was certainly fighting back. I think the response here to pick the Varus into no, I'm sorry, not the Varus, the Sivir into Varus was good in my opinion. The problem is that there was still so much that the Sivir had to deal with, being that she's obviously mid-ranged and she didn't have the setup to kind of pop off in these fights, in my opinion. I mean, you had Viego pick, which in this circumstance, I would say it's pretty selfish of a pick here. I don't really know what the angle for it is. It did kind of have some success early, um, but I wasn't really the biggest fan of it. I mean, you basically have to play for the pick just being strong all game and making sure he can maintain his lead. Um, and then you had this Leona pick, which I think Leona's fine with Sivir, but I would have loved to see something more Enchantress, to be honest. I'm gonna be 100% with you. I think it would have been a lot, or even maybe not an Enchanter, but honestly maybe even a Braum block this Renata alt, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, it was hard. It was hard here to just for Geico to do what Geico wanted to do, I think, and that was the thing I took to note. And then
Yeah, it felt. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and then also again, Chengi plus Ting, that combo is kind of gross. Because you have Wukong Ori, kind of a
Yeah.
staple of the game. So, just good luck playing around this TK Ventures draft.
Yeah, I mean Chengi in the series with Lee Sin and Wukong went 24-5. Just absolutely just so nutty.
Yeah,
Uh, and I mean after pack alone went 17-5. Sorry, 17-6. Like the top side of the map for TK Ventures showed up and popped off, and then the rest of the team just felt like they enabled them. Victor Apple had some decent Renata ults too. It felt like Ghost wasn't 100% comfortable playing into something like Renata Ori. So I don't not saying that they don't know how to play into it. There's obviously some insanely talented players on the side of Team Ghost, but their comp just ended up attacking from one direction so heavily that the Renata ult got a lot of value there.
well, here's a great opportunity now to talk about Renata. Geoprow, I think this is like the last like kind of unique support pick we've seen so far. I mean, I don't know if there's much more else we could see, and I say unique because we don't see it anymore. So,
Yeah,
what's your opinion on Renata here?
I think theoretically Renata is an insanely good pick here. I think Victor Eckable did a really good job piloting the Renata, and I think specifically into the way Team Ghost and their bot lane plays, Renata is a really strong pick. With a bonus of Renata being really strong into Viego because it just shuts off his ability to take your body sometimes, right? Like Viego likes playing on the edge, getting like ulting you, getting in there, getting the kill, and then using whatever he kills as a escape. Renata prevents that entirely. So the way it was played and just the idea of the pick really, really works in this situation. Um, as a lane counter, I don't think it's that strong. It's not perfect into Sivir. It doesn't really do anything special that you would want. It's fine into Leona, but um, Leona has kind of like a close to a 50-50 matchup against it if you don't consider AD carries. But I think the overall picture of the way Team Ghost plays and the way Tom Kench Benchers play, and just the Viego jungle for Team Ghost makes it a really, really smart and strong pick into them.
Yeah, that's a really good breakdown of the pick here. Maybe we'll see some more moving forward of the Renata. I don't think there's a lot of Renata players that I've seen so far like that anywhere where like in the past they're not really Renata support players and stuff. So be curious to see if we see it again. Victor has obviously shown the ability to play it, so I'm sure he's one of those that'd be willing to send it once again if it's a good opportunity. Um, but yeah, overall, I mean, looking at this series, looking at this game, this was a staple win for TK Ventures and kind of picking up where at least three of the five members left off, and that is, showing their dominance and looking forward to a possible run here for the championship. So, um, other than that, I think we can kind of leave it off on that. I will just ask real quick for fun, just because I don't want to go any much more longer. It's already been a long enough episode. But Geoprow, is there anything you're looking forward to seeing for this week 4, or even we could even say week 5? Is there anything over the next 2 weeks you would like to see as far as matchups that you're looking forward to watching?
Um, I'm really excited to see what happens in Group C. I wasn't super concerned with it at first because I was just focusing on my own group, getting things through. But at this point, I'm looking forward to what's going to happen in playoffs, and I'm looking at a bunch of different teams in Group C and thinking, wow, man, I don't know how strong these teams are, and that's really exciting to see. So I think Group C is the group that I'm super excited to see how it all turns out. Um, it'll be fun if we end up playing against Backdoor Bandits. I've played against them before with Load the Cannons, and I want to get revenge with my full squad of 5. Uh, I think they play too much to late game. I want to make some early game plays, but I just want to see how everything turns out in general.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Fair. CLTL, I guess I'll ask you the same question. Was there anything you're looking forward to in matchups, or just something you want to see in the future? Obviously, obviously you'd like to see yourself pull playoffs off. I'm aware of that. We all would like to see that. But was there anything on your mind?
I mean, I'm very interested in Group C. I think TK Ventures taking out Team Ghost in the fashion they did makes Group C interesting. But honestly, like Group C is strong. Group B actually kind of looks like the group of death a little bit. Like there are 5 really talented teams in Group B, and there's like this week 4 matchup where we have Backdoor Bandits and PB&J, which actually kicks off here in about an hour. And then Sad Jellyfish versus Load the Cannons. I mean, you have Salt versus Rurika, which are 2 insanely talented mid laners. And then I know you guys got Backdoor Bandits in week 5. You got PB&J versus Load the Cannons. Like Group B is shaping up to be a really tough group to predict.
Yeah, I do, and I will say I kind of second that. You could say Group C could be a group of death for sure if you want. But the thing about Group C is I think you see the 4 teams that are probably going to come out of there. Like you could just kind of go, okay, these 2-1 teams, they're probably all the ones going to make it out.
Yeah.
Dyslexic Defenders, I guess, has a shot, but I don't know based on the play we've seen so far if they truly can compete with these 4 teams, and they've already lost to a couple of them. Um, and then Group A, I think Group A has just been kind of interesting. It's more top heavy group, right? I think Coinflip and TK Gamers are kind of like, okay, this is your top, your echelon. And then everybody else is kind of like, hey, we have an opportunity. I think Group A's most exciting part is who the hell is going to get the 4th seed? Like, I generally mean that because I think any 4 of those other teams could get it. Your team can still get it. Like, you get a win here and a win there. Like, we'll see what happens.
It
So.
it's not out of the realm to say that Group C's 4 seed might only have 1 win.
uh,
I'm just saying
you're
it's
saying
not
Group
out of the
A?
realm of
Group
possibility.
A?
Group A, yeah,
Yeah. I think
because yeah, Freebrax has coin flip, Insane Banana has TK, or no, we have TK. Freebrax has coin flip. Has uh Scorch has Freebrax.
yeah.
Insane Banana has coin flip. My
Yeah.
apologies
I'm
for week
showing it
4.
on screen, but yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. I was on week 5. My apologies. And then yeah, if I mean, we've looked really strong, and I really do have a lot of confidence in my team. But I know this TK Gamer squad is very talented as well. So we could definitely mess up the group if we take a game off TK Gamers. But like you said, this Group A is so top heavy that it's not out of the realm of possibilities. Like if we beat Insane Bananas week 5 and everybody else like loses, it could be a 3-way tie with 1 win.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
look. I know the tiebreakers get kind of really ugly in that regard, but this Group A could be kind of just funny to watch how it plays out. But as far as like the actual quality of teams, quality of play, Group B looks just insanely stacked from 1 through 5.
Yeah. I think that's a fair assessment of the groups. I personally will say I'm looking forward to playing obviously Backdoor Bandits. But I think my team, and this is something that I hope my team catches. Honestly, I think this is the best we've ever looked, in my opinion. I know the Load Cannons loss looked like a little rough, but we were a little sleepy for that one. I will say that was part of it. My top laner and my AD carry only got like 3 hours of sleep before the match. And I'm not discrediting Lil the Cannons win because they played well. It's more of just like I wish we were like not tired and maybe a little more focused for how everything played out. So it definitely had an impact. But I think this is like the strongest we've ever been personally on a 1 through 5 members and team coordination. So I am looking forward to just getting into playoffs and playing some of these top teams because I think I feel like at the moment, and this is gonna sound weird, but I feel like we're just kind of like a dark horse for some of these teams. Not that they're not taking us serious, but like you just said, you're focusing on Group C right now, right, and a little bit on Backdoor Bandits, and so I think like we're being a little more quiet with our play, and so I'm looking forward to competing, and I think we will have a lot of fun matchups with some of these teams if we get to play them, whether that's you guys or TK Gamers. I missed out on the boring matchup last split. Or again, Ghost or Ventures would be a fun one for us, I think too. So it's gonna be a really really fun end of the split, if you ask me.
Yeah. Also, like the battle for that last buy spot between the second seeds.
Yeah, that'll be very interesting to break down too.
Y-
I feel like Group C is probably not gonna get it just because the way this is shaping out for Group C, it's gonna be a slobber knocker.
Yeah.
I'm looking at probably Gamers, or maybe us or Backdoor Bandits if things play out the way it could play out. Unless Coinflip you decide to drop a game, then it gets all funny. But
Nah, we won't drop a game. Don't worry.
yeah, you might. You never
Wait,
know.
Please,
We'll
please
coin
don't.
flip dragons, not games.
Okay,
Please,
cool.
please don't drop a game.
Yeah, don't. Yeah, he's like, dude, then I can't make playoffs, you jerk.
Yes,
Uh,
sir.
Yeah, I'm glad somebody caught on to that. Yeah, you guys got Insane Banana and Free Brax. And I was like, please don't drop a game.
yeah. All right. Well, I will say that's that then. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Geoprow. Thanks for sticking around. I mean, this is almost a 3 hour episode, so
Holy course.
you are a goat for that. Um, Obviously, your teammate Brandino, thank him again for coming on. It was really nice to get to know you guys and talk the games. But yeah, this is just kind of how it is. Games. This is gonna be long episodes, guys. I hope you're prepared. It's just what it is. 9 series is just so much to cover. So
A lot of games.
yeah, a lot of games. Like I said, 20 games this week. We just went over. So if you're wondering, at home.
Yep.
But yeah, so I will leave it at that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So I'm just gonna close it out. I don't think there's much more else we need to say, right, guys? We're good.
No, I'm good, man.
You're good.
I hope everybody has great holidays and safe travels.
Yeah, Geoprow, you good? You feeling good?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. Happy New Year, everybody.
All right, there you go. So Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's, guys, and looking forward to seeing you guys again on the Rift. Good night.